Who were the Phoenicians, and where did this quiet coastal people first rise along the eastern Mediterranean? How did their small cities of sailors, traders and cedar builders shape a world far beyond their shores? What secrets lie behind their purple dyes, shimmering glass, and ancient alphabets? Tonight, we explore who they truly were, and before we begin, share where you're watching from and the time there right now. The shores where their story begins. There are places in the world where history begins not with thunder, nor with the clash of armies, nor with grand declarations or the stamping of seals, but with something gentler, with water, with coastline, with the slow, steady breath of the sea as it lays itself across the sand, drawing back, returning again, like the calm inhalation and exhalation of an ancient world unhurried by time. Tonight, as you allow your own breathing to follow its natural rhythm, we will travel to such a place, a coastline where cliffs meet warm winds, where cedar forests once bowed beneath a sky brushed with violet, and where the first ships of a remarkable people once rose upon wooden ribs like the skeletons of great sea-carrying creatures. This is a story that begins along the eastern shore of the Mediterranean, a narrow strip of land pressed between mountains and water, winding for hundreds of miles, rich in harbours, drenched in salt, and bright with the gleam of sun-soaked stone. It is here, on these restless shores, that the Phoenicians began their long, quiet journey into history, and it is here that we gently settle ourselves, letting our minds drift like small boats carried upon warm currents. Imagine yourself standing on a rocky outcrop overlooking a Phoenician bay. The light is soft. The horizon glows with the last fading layer of evening. Lanterns flicker along the port, small flames housed in clay bowls, their reflections trembling in the darkening water. Ships are moored beneath you, their hulls shifting with each calm tide, each one tied to wooden posts smoothed by countless years of rope and hand and salt air. The scent of cedar resin floats upward, blending with warm sand and distant cooking fires. A soft wind moves across your skin. This is where their story begins, and where ours begins tonight. Long before they were called Phoenicians, these people were known simply as the inhabitants of the coast, craftsmen, fishermen, traders, and seafarers who lived in towns that rested like jewels along the shoreline. Byblos, older than memory. Sidon, rich with artisans. Tyre, the island city that rose from the sea like a crown of stone and timber. Arwad, perched upon its own island, its walls rising sharply from the water. Each city held its own life, its own gods, its own rituals, and yet all were threaded together with a shared rhythm, the rhythm of the sea. Close your eyes now, if you haven't already. Let the sound of imagined waves roll gently through you, slow, patient, like a tide that never questions its purpose. The Phoenicians were shaped by this tide, carried by it, sustained by it, and it was the sea that taught them their first lessons, the lessons that would guide their emergence into one of the most quietly influential cultures the world has ever known. In the early mornings of their world, when the light rose pale and golden, fishermen would step from their homes carrying woven baskets and coiled nets. The streets of their port cities were narrow, the walls warm and dusty, the air filled with the low murmur of voices greeting each other in a language that has long since faded. Children ran ahead, barefoot on the sun-warmed stone. Cats threaded through the alleys, following the smell of fish, and the sea spread out before them like a polished sheet of blue, ready to offer up its daily gifts. These people lived not in the shadow of distant empires, but in the presence of something older, something vast and unending. Many ancient cultures learned to fear the sea. The Phoenicians learned to read it, its currents, its moods, its promises. They learned the language of waves long before the alphabet they would later give to the world. Let your body soften, let your breath go deeper, slower, following the lull of this story. The shore becomes clearer now in your mind, a long curve of beach dotted with fishing boats turned upside down for repairs, with wood shavings scattered like curled shells in the sand. The smell of sea salt blends with the smell of cedar. Somewhere, a hammer taps in gentle rhythm as a shipwright works on a new vessel. The Phoenicians were shipwrights of remarkable skill. Their hands shaped the future of Mediterranean travel. Their eyes studied the horizon as if it were a text written by the gods. To understand their beginning, we return to the forest that once blanketed the slopes behind the coast. The ancient cedar forests of Lebanon were tall, fragrant, and world-famous even in antiquity. Trees that reached toward the sky like pillars of old temples. Trees with wood so strong and straight that pharaohs, and later empires, coveted its worth. When the sun rose over those forests, the air filled with the smell of sap and soil. Birds nested high in the branches, and beneath the canopy, quiet paths wound through trunks as wide as sentinels. The Phoenicians knew these forests intimately. They harvested cedar, not with wasteful hands, but with thoughtful purpose, selecting the strongest trunks, shaping them with bronze axes and smooth blades, seasoning them carefully under the warm sun before transforming them into the ribs and planks of ships. Each ship built in their coastal yards carried the breath of these ancient trees. Each sail that unfurled beneath cloudless skies carried the ambition of a people who believed the sea was not a barrier, but a bridge. Imagine the sounds of a shipyard, the scrape of a blade, the tap of pegs being driven into place, the murmur of overseers discussing the grain of the wood. Workers moved slowly, deliberately, guided by knowledge passed through generations. A Phoenician ship was not made quickly. It was crafted as though the builders understood that what they were constructing was not just a vessel of wood and rope, but a passageway between worlds. These ships, once launched, glided across the water like dark silhouettes of seabirds. Their keels cut through the waves with grace. Their sails captured the wind like vast, pale wings. And at night, when the stars emerged over the open sea, Phoenician sailors read the constellations with a familiarity cultivated through centuries. They knew the position of the North Star, they knew the seasonal winds, they knew that land, even faraway land, could be sensed long before it could be seen. As you imagine the calm rocking of such a ship, let your own body loosen, drifting gently toward rest. The sea air cools within your mind, and the ship beneath you seems steady, cradling you as though you were part of its crew on a quiet night voyage. But before the Phoenicians crossed distant waters, before they founded colonies far beyond the horizon, before they wove themselves into the story of the old world, they were something simpler. They were coastal people, living in towns bound to the rhythms of tide and season. Their homes were built from stone and timber. Their temples smelled of incense, their altars decorated with offerings to gods who watched over land and sea. They worshipped Baal, the storm lord, and Astarte, the goddess of love and fertility. They honoured Melkart, the protector of Tyre, a figure later compared by Greeks to Hercules. These beliefs formed the quiet structure of their days. To understand the Phoenicians is to understand that religion was not separate from living. It was woven into the shape of the shoreline, into the rise and fall of the waves, into the harvest of the cedar trees, into the bright glimmer of molten glass being shaped in their workshops. Glassmaking was one of their earliest crafts. Imagine a Phoenician artisan standing before a clay furnace, its heat glowing like a second sun. Inside, sand and natron melt into a glowing liquid. The artisan dips a long metal tube into the molten mixture, blowing gently to form a bubble. These first glass vessels shimmer in shades of turquoise, amber and sea green. Traders carry them across the sea. They become prized possessions in distant lands, and so, slowly, the Phoenicians began to stretch beyond their shores. But even as their world expanded, even as their ships ventured toward Cyprus, Egypt, North Africa, and beyond, the memory of their beginning remained anchored in the same place, the coast. Let this coastline fill your mind now, a place warm with sun, rich with smells of resin and sea salt, humming with the quiet industry of a thriving port. Imagine walking through the narrow streets of a city like Byblos. The stone beneath your sandals feels warm, almost alive. The buildings lean close together, casting shadows over one another. Traders lift bolts of cloth dyed in colours deep and vibrant. A potter turns a wheel, shaping clay into a vessel that will travel hundreds of miles. Fishermen carry baskets filled with glistening morning catch. A priest in white linen passes by, incense trailing behind him like smoke from a drifting star. The city is alive, but not hurried. There is a softness to it, a patience, a sense that time moves at the pace of the waves. If you listen closely in your imagination, you hear it now. The low creaking of rope, the soft clink of pottery, the distant call of a gull. All of these sounds merge into a single atmosphere, a single breath. And with each breath, you drift deeper into calmness, deeper into rest. The Phoenicians' early world was shaped by simple geography. The mountains pressed them toward the sea, and the sea offered possibilities that land could not. Inland empires rose and fell, Hittites, Egyptians, Assyrians, but along the coast, the Phoenician cities endured, sometimes conquered, sometimes taxed, sometimes pressured into political tribute, but always resilient. The sea made them flexible, trade made them valuable, their knowledge made them indispensable, and among all their gifts, the greatest was perhaps the one we still use today, the alphabet. It began simply, as all great things do, a set of symbols scratched onto clay and papyrus, each symbol representing a sound, not an idea, each shape to be repeated, remembered, carried, easier than cuneiform, lighter than hieroglyphs, more adaptable than any script before it. Through their merchants, sailors, and scribes, this alphabet travelled first to Cyprus, then to Greece, then to the broader Mediterranean, and once Greece adopted it and adapted it, it took on a life of its own. From that alphabet came the Latin alphabet, and from Latin came countless scripts used across the world today. Imagine a Phoenician scribe seated beside a lantern. His reed pen dips into ink. The papyrus beneath his hand crinkles softly. He writes letters that shape the languages of future civilizations, letters that echo through modern alphabets, letters born on the same coast where his ancestors first built their boats. The shores where their story begins are also, in many ways, the shores where ours begins. The air cools as the evening deepens. More lanterns appear along the harbour. The ships sway slightly as the tide grows. A fisherman mends a net near the water, humming softly to himself. Somewhere, a child calls out, and laughter answers. The scent of roasting fish blends with the scent of cooling stone. The stars emerge one by one, their reflections trembling on the calm surface of the Mediterranean. You breathe slowly, letting your own night settle gently around you. The warmth of the imagined air feels soothing, the glow of lanterns soft, the water steady. This is how the Phoenicians ended their days, quietly, in rhythm with the sea. And though centuries would pass, though their cities would rise and fall, though great empires would sweep across their shores, the memory of those first evenings, the soft lamps, the shifting tide, the cedar-scented winds, remains as enduring as the alphabet they left behind. Tonight, as you drift into deeper rest, your mind gently folds itself into the cradle of those ancient shores. You settle into their quiet history, you listen to the subtle sounds of their world, and in that stillness you discover the beginning of a story that shaped much of what came after. No armies, no empires, no grand proclamations, just waves, just wood, just traders, just scribes, just the soft, persistent whisper of the shores where their story begins. Lands of cedar, stone, and early kings. There is a moment just before dawn when the sky begins to shift from deep indigo into a faint, promising silver. The sea, still half asleep itself, holds onto the last reflections of night like a dark sheet of silk. The breeze has not yet risen. The air is cool and heavy with the scent of wood, salt, and distant earth. It is in this suspended, quiet hour that the ancient lands behind the Phoenician coast begin to stir, lands of cedar, stone, and the early kings whose stories are woven deeply into the memory of the Levant. Tonight, as you ease further into rest, let your breath mirror this dawn, slow, steady, gentle. Let the horizon of your mind soften as we step from the seashore inland, climbing gradually toward the mountains where the oldest trees once touched the clouds. These mountains, dense with cedar and stone, cradle the earliest beginnings of the peoples who would later be known as the Phoenicians. Imagine a faint path rising from the coastline, winding upward into hills that swell like long, sleeping animals beneath the early light. Along this path, farmers ascend with baskets balanced across their backs, filled with figs, olives, and herbs freshly collected before sunrise. The ground beneath their sandals is cool and still faintly damp with night. The birds begin to call softly, first one, then another, then a chorus. And slowly, as the horizon lightens, the shape of the landscape becomes clear. High above the coast, the mountains rise sharply, rugged, ancient, layered with rock that has felt the weight of ages. At their peaks and across their slopes stand the cedar forests, vast, fragrant, immense. These are no ordinary trees. These are the cedars of Lebanon, the giants sung about in ancient hymns and sought by empires across the world. Their trunks stand tall and thick, their branches stretching outward in great protective canopies. Even in antiquity, these trees were considered sacred, symbols of longevity, strength, and quiet majesty. Walk slowly now, in your mind, through one of these forests. The ground is soft with layers of fallen needles. The air is cooler here, shadowed but not dark. Shafts of morning sun filter through the branches, illuminating small particles of dust that drift like tiny golden specks. The forest smells of resin, sharp, warm, comforting. The soft rumble of woodcutters working in the distance blends with bird song and the faint whistle of wind weaving through branches. The people who lived along these mountains and foothills understood these trees intimately. Long before the Phoenicians became great sailors, before their ships carried purple dye across the Mediterranean, they were mountain people, forest people, stone workers and shepherds, living in small villages that clung gently to terraced slopes. Many of these early communities were built from the very stone pulled from the mountains around them. Limestone blocks stacked into walls that glowed pale, gold under the sun. Their homes were simple but sturdy. Their hearths burned quietly each night, sending soft spirals of smoke into the crisp mountain air. Small altars stood at the edges of their villages, where offerings of grain, wine, or pressed oil were placed beneath the open sky. Let yourself picture one such village now. It rests on a high ridge, the view spilling down into a long valley where olive groves stretch like green patterns embroidered into the land. A handful of goats graze lazily along the slope. A shepherd sits nearby, leaning against a rock warmed by the early sun, his staff resting across his knees. In the distance, women gather water from a spring hidden behind clusters of wild pomegranate and juniper bushes. The village itself is quiet, peaceful, its rhythms steady and ancient. These mountain communities formed the backbone of early Phoenician society. They supplied wood, stone, resin, fruit and knowledge of the land, knowledge of craft, knowledge of the gods who lived in wind and rain and thunder. From these highlands, long before Tyre and Sidon gained their fame, early kings watched over their small domains. These were not kings in the imperial sense, not rulers of vast territories or commanders of massive armies. Instead, they were local leaders, often the eldest members of prominent families, entrusted with guiding the village, maintaining the crops, overseeing trade, and honouring the spirits of the land. Their crowns were simple bands of woven reeds or soft leather. Their thrones were carved wooden seats in shaded courtyards. But within their realms, however small, they held the respect of their people. Their wisdom did not come from conquest, but from experience, years of tending fields, years of managing water, years of negotiating with neighbouring villages, years of performing rituals at the sacred groves where cedar trees whispered ancient truths. Let your breath flow softly as we step deeper into their daily world. Morning turns into midday. The sun rises higher, warming the stones of village walls and the roofs of terraced houses. The distant sea now glimmers far below, a thin line of shifting blue. The villagers gather beneath the shade of a large cedar, its branches spreading like a protective hand overhead. A potter is shaping clay on a slow-turning wheel. A woman crushes herbs with a stone, preparing ointments for trade. Children chase each other in the dust, their laughter echoing lightly between the trees. In the distance you hear the sound of chisels tapping against rock, deep, steady, rhythmic. Early kings relied on the skill of stonemasons, who carved tombs, foundations, altars and monumental stones that stood like quiet guardians around their settlements. These stones bore inscriptions, sometimes in early scripts, sometimes simple symbols marking a lineage or a prayer for protection. Much of this stonework has long been lost to erosion and time, but in your imagination the stones are still sharp, still standing, still warmed by sunlight. You can run your fingers along their carved surfaces. You can feel the ancient precision in their angles. You can sense the reverence with which they were shaped and placed. This land was as much a spiritual landscape as a physical one. Cedar trees were believed to hold divine power. Springs and rivers were guarded by local deities. Groves were sacred spaces where early priests performed quiet rituals. Offerings were simple: grains, wine, small carvings, or woven garlands. These rituals were not loud or theatrical. They were intimate, reflective, spoken in soft tones that blended with the sound of leaves rustling high in the canopy. Picture a sacred grove now. Deep in the forest, sunlight breaks through the branches in shifting patterns. The air is cool. The cedar trunks stand like pillars supporting the sky. At the centre of the grove is a flat stone altar, worn smooth by centuries. A small clay bowl rests upon it, filled with clear water from a nearby spring. A thin trail of smoke rises from incense burning in a carved holder. The air smells faintly of pine, earth, and something sweet, perhaps myrrh or dried fig. A priest in a simple robe stands before the altar. He murmurs a prayer, thanking the spirits of the forest for the wood used in building new homes. He blesses the hunters and the woodcutters. He whispers wishes for good harvests and peaceful trade. The people gather in silence, listening, their faces calm, their minds steady. And in this atmosphere of reverence, the world feels connected, coherent, quietly alive. Your breath slows even more now. matching the stillness of this sacred place. You feel yourself sinking deeper into the tranquility, the softness, the ancient rhythm of life shaped by cedar, stone, and water. As time stretches, the early kings guide their communities not only in ritual but in practicality. They oversee terrace building, long, carefully arranged steps of stone that transform steep hillsides into fertile farmland. With each new terrace, more olives, grapes and barley can be grown. Weeks of labour go into stacking each stone, packed with earth rich from the mountains. The kings also manage water, diverting channels from springs, storing water in stone basins, ensuring the community has enough during the dry seasons. They settle disputes between families. They organise shared labour in the woods during cedar harvesting. They negotiate with other highland settlements, exchanging olive oil for wool, grain for pottery, timber for bronze tools. Trade is the lifeblood of these lands, long before the Phoenicians become famous across the sea. Caravans pass through mountain passes, donkeys laden with goods, their bells jingling softly in the crisp air. Traders wear cloaks made of wool, dyed in earthy colours. They carry scrolls, small jars, bundles of herbs and coils of rope. They bring news from other valleys, news of distant storms, of festivals, of the births and deaths of kings. Picture one such caravan now. It winds along a narrow path carved into the side of the mountains. Below it, a deep gorge opens like the mouth of the earth. Above it, the cedar trees cling to the slopes. The sky is clear. The caravan moves slowly, steadily, the donkeys' hooves clicking against the stone. Their breaths rise in small puffs. The traders speak quietly, their voices blending with the soft rustling of the forest. As they reach the village, people gather to greet them. The early king steps forward, an older man with a gentle expression and hands worn by years of work. He offers the traders bread dipped in oil, sweet figs and cool water. They offer him a bronze dagger from a distant region, perhaps from Anatolia or Cyprus, the metal shining faintly in the sun. The exchange is simple, elegant, meaningful. This is how early kings ruled, through trust, wisdom, and the steady maintenance of relationships that kept their communities thriving. As the sun begins its slow descent across the sky, casting long shadows through the forest, the mountains turn golden, then amber, then dusky and soft. Dinner fires are lit. The smell of stewed lentils and fresh flatbread fills the air. People gather around the flames, warming their hands, telling quiet stories. The cedar logs crackle softly in the hearths. Sparks drift upward into the sky like fleeting stars. Inside these stone homes, the families sit together on woven mats. Children rest their heads on their mothers' laps. The early kings sit among their people, not above them, but with them. They listen to the stories of hunters. They hear the concerns of farmers. They bless newborn children. They drink wine sweetened with dates. They ask the elders about signs of the coming rains. Life is slow here, steady, unhurried, a pattern repeated each day with gentle consistency. And as night settles fully, the sky deepens into a dark velvet blanket studded with brilliant stars. The cedar forest becomes a quiet silhouette against the horizon. The goats lie down in their pens. The traders sleep beneath woolen blankets. The fires burn low. But in the high places, on mountain tops where the wind moves freely, early kings sometimes keep vigil. They sit on smooth stones overlooking their lands, wrapped in heavy cloaks, their breath forming pale clouds in the cold air. They gaze out at the dark valleys and the faint lights of the villages below. They listen to the whispers of the forest. They contemplate the responsibilities they carry. In these moments, the early kings become part of the land itself, rooted like the cedars, grounded like the stones, enduring like the mountains. Their legacy is not measured by monuments or conquests, but by continuity, by the simple, vital truth that their people thrived, that they fed the land and were fed by it, that they lived in balance with the natural world that shaped them. As you breathe in now, feel the mountain air enter your lungs, cool, clean, ancient. As you breathe out, release the tension of your day. You are walking among early kings. You are walking on the first stones that would later support the rise of Phoenician cities. You are standing in the forests whose wood would one day carry ships across the sea. You are listening to the wind that guided traders along hidden paths. These lands of cedar, stone, and early kings are the quiet cradle of a civilization that will eventually stretch its influence across the Mediterranean. But for now, in this moment, we simply rest with them. We listen to their breath. We feel the pulse of the earth beneath their homes. We sense the warmth of their fires, and slowly, as the night deepens, the mountains fall silent. The stars glow ever brighter. time seems to soften, to loosen its hold, and we drift gently with it, carried not by the sea this time, but by the steady rooted strength of the land. For even as Phoenicia would become a civilization of sailors and explorers, its story began here, in the quiet hollows of cedar forests, in the warmth of stone homes, in the wisdom of early kings whose names are lost, but whose presence remains. These lands cradle you now, inviting you to rest, inviting you to breathe deeply, inviting you to surrender the weight of the day. And as you drift further into stillness, the ancient mountains watch over you, the cedars whisper softly in the wind, and the early kings stand at the edge of history, silent, steady, eternal. The first sailors who trusted the sea. There is an ancient moment in history, long before maps were drawn, long before compasses were invented, long before anyone understood the mathematics of wind, that belongs entirely to imagination. A moment when a human being first stepped onto a wooden vessel, pushed away from the familiar safety of shore, and let the sea cradle them. A moment when the world expanded not through war or conquest, but through trust. Trust in the water, trust in the sky, trust in the unknown. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, breathing slowly and evenly, we will drift into that moment, into the quiet, brave world of the first sailors who trusted the sea. Their stories shimmer beneath the waves of time like faint ripples. Their footsteps linger on the wet sands of forgotten shores. Their voices, if you listen closely, can still be heard in the soft hush of tides arriving at night. Let your mind loosen gently. Let your body sink deeper into whatever supports you. Feel the slow, steady rhythm of the sea in your breath. A soft rise, a soft fall, like waves folding over themselves. And now, imagine the world long before the bustling harbours of Tyre and Sidon, before the purple sails of Phoenician ships unfurled against Mediterranean sun, before cities grew strong beside the waves. Imagine instead a quieter world, a world of fishermen living in simple huts built from reeds and driftwood, a world where the coastline was dotted with small scattered settlements, a world where people watched the horizon with a mixture of fear and fascination, a world where the sea was not yet a road, but a mystery. Step forward into that early world with the gentleness of a rising tide. You stand on a beach at dawn, the light is soft and pale, brushing the sky with delicate gold. The sand beneath your feet is cool, studded with small shells, each one smooth from years of tumbling through the surf. The water laps gently at the shore, a calm, regular rhythm. Above you, seabirds glide in long, slow arcs, their calls echoing faintly across the waves. In the distance, a small group of early coastal people gather around a wooden frame. They speak in low voices, their language simple and rhythmic, shaped by generations of living beside the same strip of shoreline. They do not yet possess the elaborate ships that future Phoenicians would build. Instead, they work on something far simpler, a raft made of bundled reeds, tied tightly with ropes made from twisted grass fibres. These early sailors have learned through years of observation that reeds float, that bundles tied together can carry weight, and that water supports what land cannot. The first vessels of this world are humble, but they represent something profound. They represent trust, trust in materials gathered from the marshes, trust in knots tied with skill and care, trust in the stillness of morning when winds are gentle and the sea lies like a sheet of silver. The villagers lift the raft gently, carrying it toward the water. Their footsteps leave shallow impressions in the sand. As they approach the shoreline, you can hear the small sucking sound of wet sand beneath their feet. They wade into the water up to their knees. The raft is placed carefully upon the gentle swell. It bobs slightly, rising and falling with the tide. A fisherman, perhaps the first in this region to attempt such a voyage, steps onto the raft. He moves slowly, testing his balance, feeling the raft adjust beneath him. His heart beats with a mixture of fear and hope. Behind him, his family watches. The villagers hold their breath. The fisherman takes a long wooden pole, pushes gently against the sandy bottom, and the raft glides forward, just a few feet, just enough to float freely. In this simple movement, history changes. A new world opens. A new possibility begins. These first sailors do not travel far. Their voyages are short, hugging the coastline like cautious footsteps. But each short journey builds confidence. Each return to shore carries knowledge of currents, tides, winds, and the moods of the sea. The early sailors of the Levant began to understand that the sea had patterns. At dawn, the water was often calm, almost glass-like. By mid-afternoon, Winds would stir, shifting the surface into a quilt of ripples. In the evening, sea breezes carried the smell of deep water inland. Storms signalled themselves with dark clouds gathering far on the horizon, long before rain arrived. These patterns became teachers. The sea was no longer a barrier. It became a partner. Let your breath mirror these patterns. Calm, steady, predictable. Inhale gently, exhale gently, drifting as the raft drifts. Over generations, the people who lived on these shores crafted more refined vessels. From bundled reeds, they moved to hollowed logs. They learned to carve out the core of a tree, creating dugout canoes that were steadier and more manoeuvrable. These canoes were coated with pitch to prevent water from seeping into the wood. Their surfaces became smooth from repeated contact with sand and salt. Imagine one such canoe now. Its wooden sides glow softly in the early sunlight. A fisherman pushes it into the water, carrying small clay pots filled with bait. He steps inside, his weight shifting carefully. The canoe rocks slightly, then steadies. The fisherman paddles with slow, deliberate strokes. The sound is soft, just the quiet dip of the paddle into water, the gentle drip of droplets falling back into the sea. The canoe glides past rocks, past seaweed drifting just below the surface, past schools of small fish darting in shimmering flashes. The fisherman casts his net. The sun rises higher. The day unfolds in peaceful rhythm. These early voyages remain close to shore, but curiosity grows. Each generation pushes slightly farther, slightly deeper, slightly braver. The sea becomes familiar. By observing birds, the early sailors learn where land must be. By watching the colour of the water, they learn to recognise shallows and depths. By studying the stars, they begin to sense that the sky too can guide them. Night voyages begin. Picture yourself as sitting in one of these early boats at night. The air is cool and crisp. The sky stretches above you like a vast tapestry of shimmering points. The stars reflect in the water, as though the sky has dipped itself into the sea. You can hear only the soft lapping of waves against the wood. In the distance, the faint outline of land glows with firelight from the village. The first sailors used the North Star as a guide. They notice that this star does not move while others shift and arc across the sky. They learn to align their course with this steady point, trusting it as a celestial anchor. As the boat rocks gently beneath you, you feel the pull of sleep. Your thoughts drift like the canoe, slow and suspended. You let your mind follow the motion of the waves, trusting them as the early sailors trusted them. Over centuries, these small canoes evolve. Knowledge accumulates, passing from parent to child, from elder to apprentice. Soon, early Phoenician ancestors learned to build boats with planks instead of single logs. They learned to curve the hull, to shape the bow so it slices through waves with ease. They learned to build frames that support larger vessels. One day, in a small coastal settlement, a master shipwright stands before a nearly completed boat, a sleek vessel made of cedar planks fitted together tightly and sealed with resin. It is larger than any boat his grandfather ever built. Its sides are polished smooth. A mast stands proudly at its centre, ready to hold a sail made of woven linen. This is one of the first true sailing vessels. The village gathers to witness its launch. The air buzzes softly with anticipation. Children sit on rocks, swinging their legs. Elders lean on staffs. A priest sprinkles water mixed with herbs onto the bow, whispering prayers to the gods of sea and wind. When the boat slides into the water, pushed by many hands, it glides forward with grace. Its hull settles into the waves. For a moment, everyone is silent, waiting, hoping. The sail is raised. The wind catches it. The vessel leans slightly, then moves forward, smooth and steady. A gasp rises from the crowd, then a cheer, then a wave of joyous laughter. The world has changed again. The sea is no longer something to fear, but something to explore, something to ride upon, something that responds to human skill, attention, and courage. Let your breath follow that movement, the gentle push of wind into sail, the soft rise of the boat as it catches momentum. Feel yourself glide forward, carried by forces both natural and ancient. These early sailing voyages deepen the understanding of currents. They teach sailors that the sea has lanes, routes where the water flows in predictable streams, pushing boats forward. These invisible highways become the first maritime trade routes of the ancient world. Over time, sailors begin travelling between villages that would later become Phoenician cities. They carry goods, wool, fish, olives, barley, pottery. These exchanges weave bonds between communities. A network forms along the coast, alive with movement, conversation, and trade. And through this network, knowledge spreads. One fisherman learns from another the shape of a distant bay. One trader learns from another the safe passage between two rocky islands. One sailor learns from another the way the wind shifts before a storm. Over centuries, these bits of wisdom accumulate like grains of sand on a shore. From them, the earliest maps are born. Not maps drawn on parchment, but maps carried in memory. Maps spoken aloud. Maps recited along with stories. Maps based on stars, currents, birds, colour and waves. You can imagine one of these early navigators now, a man with weathered skin, bright eyes and a calm voice. He stands on the deck of a wooden vessel, pointing toward the horizon, teaching a young apprentice the signs of the sea. He speaks slowly, with reverence, passing on knowledge that has been shaped by countless voyages. The apprentice listens with wide eyes, absorbing every word. When evening falls, the navigator points to the stars. He speaks of constellations, of wind patterns, of the gentle differences between a morning tide and an evening tide. The apprentice feels the weight and wonder of these lessons. He breathes in the cool sea air. He feels the future unfolding before him. You too feel this, the serenity, the stillness, the slow rhythmic expansion of understanding. And so, with each generation, the sailors travel farther. They begin visiting Cyprus, with its copper-rich lands. They travel to the Egyptian delta, bringing cedar wood and returning with papyrus bundles. They skirt along the coast of Anatolia, exploring new harbours. They return with stories of distant shores, of strange customs, of new materials. Their boats grow larger, their sails become more refined, their ropes stronger, their courage deeper. And then one day, a group of early sailors reaches a place no one in their village has ever seen before. It is an island, shimmering in the midday sun. The sand is soft and pale. The water around it is clear. They gather shells, driftwood, and fruit from its trees. They rest in its shade. They feel the quiet thrill of discovery. They have crossed not just physical water, but the boundary between the known and the unknown. Let your breath carry that feeling. The soft, slow exhilaration of gentle discovery. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just peaceful, like finding a new dream inside your mind. These sailors return home with new confidence. They tell their villages of what lies beyond the horizon. They describe the island, the plants, the birds, the rocks, the scent of its air. In time, these stories inspire others to sail farther. And so, the early Phoenician ancestors begin to map the Mediterranean without ever holding a pen. Their journeys stretch across generations. A father sails to one distant shore, and his son sails beyond it. His grandson sails beyond that. Each voyage extends the reach of coastal knowledge. Each return adds a new thread to the tapestry of maritime memory. The wind becomes a friend, the sea a guide, the sky a map. One evening, after a long voyage, a group of sailors approaches their home shore just as the sun begins to set. The water turns the colour of molten gold. The mountains rise in dark silhouettes behind their village. Smoke curls from hearths. Dogs bark softly. Children run to the water's edge, waving and calling out. The sailors step from their boat, exhausted but peaceful. They carry with them goods from distant lands. Perhaps a type of pottery never before seen in their village, or a stone with unusual markings, or a plant whose seeds they will study and cultivate. Their arrival is met with quiet celebration. Bread is shared, wine is poured, stories are told deep into the night. This cycle repeats endlessly: voyage, return, rest, rebuild, teach, travel again. And through it, the early Levantine sailors become the most experienced seafarers of their age. Long before the Phoenician civilization rises into its full strength, these early mariners build the foundation. They are the pioneers, the first to trust the sea, the first to understand that water can link lands rather than divide them. Their knowledge becomes the bedrock upon which the future Phoenicians build vast trading networks. Legendary fleets and colonies spread across the Mediterranean. Their courage becomes the quiet heartbeat of a civilization. Their dreams become the sails that catch the wind of centuries. As you drift deeper into your own calm, feel the weight of their legacy settle around you like a warm cloak. The sea within your mind grows gentle, its surface smooth, its rhythm steady. The stars above are bright but comforting. The boat beneath you, imagined though it may be, rocks in a way that lulls the body toward rest. You are with the first sailors now. You breathe with them. You drift with them. You rest with them. You sail with them through the quiet hours of the night. And as your thoughts begin to soften, As your body grows heavy with sleep, you feel something remarkable, the same trust they felt. Trust in the gentle movement beneath you. Trust in the slow unfolding of the world. Trust in the sea of dreams waiting ahead. These first sailors who trusted the sea are the ancestors not just of a civilization, but of curiosity itself, of exploration, of courage, of the soft eternal search for what lies beyond the horizon. And now, as sleep draws near, you feel yourself becoming part of that search, drifting gently, quietly, endlessly, across the calm waters of the ancient world. Byblos, Sidon, and the ancient cities of light. There are cities in this world whose histories are not written in ink, nor carved only in stone, but carried on the breath of the sea, preserved in the glow of old harbours, and laced into the quiet rhythm of waves that continue to touch their shores long after their people have faded into time. Cities born from light, the kind of light that rises gently over the water, touches ancient walls, and seems to whisper the memory of generations. Tonight, as you draw in a slow breath and allow your body to soften, we step into the world of three of the oldest cities humanity has ever known: Byblos, Sidon, and the constellation of coastal towns that once formed the luminous heart of the ancient eastern Mediterranean. These cities were not loud powers like Rome or Babylon. They were not forged through conquest or built on the bones of empires. Instead, they were shaped by light, trade, patience, and the steady pulse of the sea. Let your breath fall into a slow, gentle rhythm. Let your eyes soften or close, if they haven't already. Feel the calm of evening settling around you as we travel to shores where lanterns once flickered in long lines across the water, and where the earliest scripts of human thought were carried from land to land. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a harbour just before dawn. The sky above is pale and pearl-like, soft as a seashell. A thin mist clings to the water, drifting lazily across the wooden hulls of anchored ships. Lanterns swing gently in the pre-dawn breeze, casting warm reflections across the water, moving, stretching, dissolving, reappearing. The smell of wet wood, distant incense, and cool sea air fills your lungs. Here, on this quiet stretch of coastline, stands Byblos, one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities. A place so ancient that when the pharaohs of Egypt were carving their earliest pyramids, Byblos was already a thriving port town with rituals, temples, kings, and trade routes that reached into distant lands. Walk forward slowly. Your feet touch old stone, smoothed by the countless footsteps of people who lived, worked, prayed, and traded here thousands of years ago. To your right, you see the faint outline of the city rising from the mist. Low stone buildings, narrow streets, and the remains of ancient towers that once guarded the harbour. To your left, the sea stretches infinitely, glimmering faintly as the sun begins its slow, gentle ascent. The people of Byblos woke early. In the soft light, fishermen returned from their nighttime ventures, hauling nets that glistened with the scales of silver fish. Merchants prepared their stalls, arranging jars of oil, baskets of figs, bundles of papyrus, and pottery glazed with colours drawn from the earth. Sailors tightened ropes and tended to their boats. The city stirred awake, not abruptly, but gradually, like the slow unfurling of a sail, catching the first wind of morning. As you breathe in, imagine the scent of cedar resin drifting from carpenters' workshops deeper inside the city. The forest behind Byblos once produced cedar trees of extraordinary size and strength. Their timber was prized across the ancient world, especially by the Egyptians, who relied on Byblos for shipbuilding and monumental construction. Pitch are massive cedar logs, stripped of their bark, stacked along the city's outer walls. Workers move among them, measuring, shaping, smoothing. Their tools scrape softly, blending with the calls of sailors and the distant cries of seabirds. This quiet labour, steady, rhythmic, almost meditative, helped create the earliest bonds between Byblos and Egypt. For centuries, cedar wood travelled southward across the Mediterranean in great rafts. In return, Byblos received papyrus, sheets of writing material rolled carefully and stored in cool rooms. The city became a centre of literacy, trade, and cultural exchange. The very word Byblos would later give rise to the Greek word biblion, meaning book, and from that, the word Bible. The memory of this ancient city is written into the language of the modern world. Now imagine yourself stepping deeper into the city centre. The sun rises higher, casting long golden rays across the stone walls. You pass a small temple dedicated to Balat Gebal, the Lady of Byblos, a goddess revered as protector of the city. A shrine is decorated with small offerings left by fishermen, mothers, artisans, and traders. Clay figurines, woven baskets, fruit, and oil lamps flickering softly in the morning breeze. A priestess moves slowly across the courtyard, sweeping away fallen leaves and lighting incense. The smell, warm, sweet, and slightly smoky, drifts upward toward the sky. Worship here was quiet, reverent, rooted in long traditions that stretched back to the earliest days of settled life on these shores. Take a deep breath. Feel yourself walking in this calm place where faith, trade, nature, and daily life were woven seamlessly together. From Byblos, our journey drifts southward along the coast. The sunlight grows warmer. The waves roll gently against the shore, their crests shimmering with soft white foam. As you follow the curve of the land, another city rises into view. Sidon, a place of artisans, shipbuilders, and explorers. Sidon's harbour is wider, more bustling, alive with the sounds of hammers striking metal, saws carving through wood, voices calling instructions, and waves slapping gently against dozens of hulls. This city was famous for its craftsmanship, glass making, purple dye production, textiles, and jewellery. Imagine stepping onto the docks. The smell of heated sand drifts from the glass workshops, where artisans shape molten glass into delicate beads or curved vessels that catch the light like captured drops of water. Their breath expands into the long, blowing pipes, and with each exhale, a shimmering bubble grows, spinning slowly before being shaped into a perfect form. Nearby, dyers work with murex shells, the small but precious sea snails that produce the famed Tyrian purple dye. The process is long, intricate, and aromatic. The dye begins as a pale yellow liquid, slowly deepening into green, then adjusting into blues and reds, before finally settling into a deep royal purple, a colour once reserved for kings and high priests. The dyeing pools shimmer with these shades, glowing softly under the morning sun. Walk deeper into Sidon, and you will hear the rhythmic pounding of looms. Weavers create cloth with intricate patterns, their hands moving with the steady precision of long-practiced skill. Each motion is calm, methodical, almost hypnotic. Breathe slowly with the motion of the loom. In and out, in and out. Sidon's people, like those of Byblos, lived in harmony with the sea, but they were known for pushing farther outward, toward Cyprus, toward Anatolia, toward the Aegean. Their ships were sturdy, elegant, and built to weather long voyages. If Byblos was the mother city of trade, Sidon was the father of craftsmanship and maritime expansion. Continue travelling with me along the coastline. The waves remain steady. The sky is a bright, endless blue. Olive groves and terraced fields stretch inland, rising toward the mountains. And there, further south, you see an island city, a city once surrounded by water, its towers rising like a crown above the sea. This is Tyre, the third great city of the Phoenician world. But tonight, our story focuses gently on the first two cities, Byblos and Sidon, and the constellation of light that surrounded them. These ancient cities glowed not only with lanterns, but with intelligence, innovation, and cultural brilliance. Imagine yourself sitting beside the harbour of Byblos again, this time at sunset. The sky burns with warm hues, amber, rose, and soft lavender. Boats return from their voyages, their sails glowing softly in the dying light. The city hums with evening energy. Families prepare meals, merchants close their stalls, sailors share stories of distant shores. The air cools, the lanterns light once more. One by one, fires glow along the coastline, small points of warmth stretching north and south for miles. These lights are more than flames. They are signals of civilization, of life, of connection. Travellers see them from far away, guiding their approach. The lights reflect upon the water, creating shimmering paths that look like stairways to the sky. These cities, Byblos, Sidon, and others, were never united by a single king. Instead, they were bound by the sea, by trade, by shared cultural memory. Each city was independent, yet all were interwoven. Their strength came not from empire, but from cooperation. Now imagine walking through the narrow streets of Sidon as evening settles. The lamps flicker. A soft breeze carries the scent of cooking fish, crushed grapes, and warm bread. Musicians sit near the marketplace playing quiet melodies on lyres and flutes. The notes drift through the air like fireflies. You follow a path toward the shoreline. There, you see a group of sailors gathered around a fire. They speak of a recent voyage to Cyprus, of mountains covered in copper, of forests filled with resin-rich pines, of beaches where strange shells wash ashore. Their voices are low, their laughter gentle, their faces illuminated by the soft flames. Sit with them for a moment. Feel the warmth of the fire on your skin. Let your mind drift with their stories, each one carried on the calm breath of the sea wind. The ancient cities of light functioned as waypoints of human understanding. Here, writing evolved. Here, trade flourished. Here, religions intersected, shared, blended. Here, languages exchanged ideas. If you listen closely, you can almost hear scribes whispering over papyrus scrolls, teaching new traders how to write the earliest alphabet. A simple, elegant system that would one day give birth to Greek, Latin, and countless modern languages. Imagine sitting beside a scribe in Byblos. His table is a smooth stone slab. A small oil lamp burns beside him, casting a warm, steady glow. He dips his reed pen into ink and begins to write. Each stroke is precise, practiced. The symbols take shape, not pictographs, not complex signs, but letters representing sounds. The simplicity is beautiful, the clarity revolutionary. Your breath follows the calm movement of his hand. Outside the scribe's home, the night deepens. The sound of waves rolls softly across the harbour. Sidon's glassmakers extinguish their furnaces, letting the embers fade into quiet warmth. Dyers cover their vats, protecting them from the cool night air. Fishermen secure their boats and lay down for sleep, their dreams filled with the rhythm of the sea they know so well. The world rests, and in this rest we see the essence of the ancient cities of light. Their strength lay not in armies, not in conquests, not in towering monuments, but in their ability to live in harmony with the days, the seasons, the tides, and with the endless horizon. As you breathe slowly, imagine walking along the shoreline one last time before sleep. The stars glimmer above you, their reflections dancing softly on the water. The lanterns of Byblos and Sidon flicker gently, growing dimmer as night deepens. You feel the ancient stones beneath your feet, smooth, warm from the day's sun. You feel the cool air brushing against your skin. You hear the waves hush, 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 like a soft lullaby. These cities have stood here for thousands of years. Empires have risen and fallen. Civilizations have come and gone. Yet the stones remain, the harbours remain, the light remains. And tonight it welcomes you. The gentle glow of Byblos, the warm amber of Sidon, the distant shimmer of other coastal towns. Each light flickers softly in your mind, calming your thoughts, easing your breath, preparing your body for rest. You walk along the ancient path until you find a quiet place to sit. You listen to the sea. You let its rhythm steady you, soothe you, carry you. Byblos, Sidon, the ancient cities of light. Their memories linger like lanterns on the water, guiding you gently into the deep, restful night. Traders of purple, glass, and hidden wealth. There are moments in history when wealth is not measured in coins, nor in jewels, nor in towering monuments, but in something quieter and more luminous. Wealth that glimmers from the hands of craftsmen, wealth that rises in shimmering colours from heated furnaces, wealth that comes from the patient hands of gatherers along the rocky coastline, and wealth that travels silently over the sea in the hold of ships. Tonight, we drift into that world, the world of the ancient traders of purple, glass, and unseen treasures that shape the identity of Phoenicia. As you take a slow breath in, imagine the scent of warm sand and cool sea air. As you exhale, feel your body sink deeper, letting the gentle rhythm of this ancient coast wash over you. Let your thoughts become soft, like sunlit water spreading across a calm harbour. We begin at dawn, before the first voices rise in the streets, before craftsmen light their furnaces, before the waves grow restless. Picture a shoreline, wrapped in pale gold light. Small boats rest in the shallows, their hulls painted with years of salt and wind. The stones along the harbour are still cool from the night. The air carries the faintest smell of wood smoke from the ovens of the glassworkers, preparing for the day. This is Sidon, or it may be Tyre, or Arwad. It hardly matters, for all these ancient coastal cities shared a soul, shaped by craft, colour, and trade. The people who lived here were known not just for their ships, but for the extraordinary objects those ships carried. Objects so prized that kings coveted them, temples displayed them, and distant empires paid dearly for them. One of those treasures was purple, not the soft violets and lavenders we know today, but a deep glowing royal purple that seemed to hold the dusk within its fibres. It was a colour so rare and so costly that in many ancient kingdoms only the highest rulers were permitted to wear it. Let your breath slow as you imagine how such a colour was made. On the rocky shores near Sidon and Tyre there lived small sea snails known as murex. From the outside they were unremarkable, dull shells clinging to stones half hidden beneath shallow waves, but the Phoenicians learned that within these shells lay a secret, a tiny gland that contained a milky liquid. When exposed to sunlight and mixed with patience, skill, and time, this liquid transformed into the deepest and most vibrant purple ever seen. Imagine standing on one of these rocky shores in the early morning. The air is cool. The rocks are slick with water. A group of gatherers moves slowly along the tide pools, lifting stones, searching in crevices, and prying small shells free with simple wooden tools. Each snail they gather represents only a drop of potential dye. To create enough dye for a single garment requires hundreds, sometimes thousands, of these tiny creatures. You can hear the gentle rhythm of waves washing over the rocks. You can smell the briny scent of the sea. You can feel the quiet determination of the people who gather and carry their precious collection back toward the city. As the sun rises higher, the dyeing yards begin their work. Large clay vats stand beneath open sky, filled with solutions prepared through long tradition. Workers crush the murex, mixing the liquid with salt and letting it ferment beneath the warmth of the day. The smell is strong, sharp, earthy, marine, but to the traders of this city, it is the scent of prosperity. Now breathe softly, imagining the slow alchemy of this ancient craft. The milky liquid turns yellow, then green, then blue, then finally settles into deep glowing violet. Cloth dipped into these vats absorbs the colour gradually, like dusk seeping into silk. When lifted into the sunlight, the cloth glows with richness unmatched anywhere in the ancient world. Merchants arrange these dyed fabrics carefully in wooden chests. They fold them with reverence, each piece a small treasure. When evening comes, the chests are carried onto ships, the famous long, slender Phoenician vessels that glide smoothly across the Mediterranean. Let yourself drift with one of these ships. The sun has sunk low, and the sky glows with muted peach and rose. The sea undulates beneath the hull, rocking you gently. The smell of cedar, salt, and faint purple dye lingers in the air. Sailors move quietly across the deck, checking ropes and adjusting sails. The world is calm, soft, and expansive. The ship carries purple cloth to distant lands, to markets as far away as Greece and Egypt, and even beyond. But purple was only one of the treasures these cities produced. Now, in your mind, step away from the dyeing yards and walk through the winding streets toward the glow of a furnace. The heat radiates from the workshop long before you reach its door. Step inside, slowly, carefully. The air feels warm against your skin. The sound of crackling fire fills the space, and in the centre of the workshop stands a glass maker. He holds a long tube to his lips, blowing air into a molten bubble of glowing liquid. The glass swells, shimmering like a suspended droplet of light. His hands roll the tube across a smooth stone slab, shaping it gently. Another artisan uses tools to pinch, stretch, and refine the glass. Together, they work with a calm precision practiced over generations. The furnace roars softly. The molten glass glows like the sun itself. The workshop feels timeless. Imagine the colours cooling into translucent blues, soft greens, amber golds, and pale aquas. Bowls, beads, flasks, and vials line the shelves, each one delicate, each one valuable. In a world where glass was rare, these objects were marvels of craftsmanship. Traders from across the region came to Sidon for this glass. They carried it on ships bound for Cyprus, Crete, Egypt, and beyond. The beauty of these objects lay not just in their clarity, but in the knowledge they held. The knowledge of fire, sand, breath, and artistry. Take a deep breath now, steady and slow. Feel the warmth of the furnace fade into gentle evening air as you step back onto the streets. As the sun sets, the city transforms again. Lanterns glow in windows. The scent of bread baking wafts from homes. A soft breeze carries the murmur of evening prayer from a small temple. In the distance, ships creak softly in the harbour. And within this peaceful twilight, the true wealth of the Phoenicians becomes clear. It was not only in their dye, not only in their glass, not only in the goods they traded. Their wealth lay in knowledge, in skills honed over generations, in secrets carefully guarded, in the quiet mastery of materials drawn from earth and sea. Their wealth lay in connection, in the routes they mapped across the Mediterranean, in the relationships they built with distant lands, in the way their ships stitched together cultures like threads through cloth. Their wealth lay in subtlety, in objects small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, yet valuable enough to influence kingdoms. Now imagine yourself standing once more at the harbour, watching a ship prepare to leave under moonlight. The cargo is loaded, purple cloth folded neatly, glass vessels wrapped carefully in straw, jars of fragrant oils, carved ivory, polished wood, small beads of turquoise, and tiny amulets shaped from bronze. The sailors push away from the dock. The ship glides into open water. Moonlight paints a path across the sea. The hull creaks softly. The sails billow with night wind. You feel the quiet thrill of voyage, but also the deep peace of night, a peace felt by countless sailors, merchants, and craftsmen who lived their lives in harmony with this ancient sea. As your breath slows even more, imagine yourself aboard this ship. The deck rocks gently. The stars above shine in countless patterns. Guides used by sailors for centuries. You lie back against a coil of rope, feeling the sway of the vessel beneath you. The world around you is vast, dark, and soothing. The sea whispers, the wind hums, the ship carries its ancient treasures forward, and through it all you drift, calm, safe, weightless. The traders of purple, glass, and hidden wealth were not warriors or conquerors. They did not build empires through force. Their strength came from patience, craftsmanship, intelligence, and the quiet ambition to understand the world through trade. Tonight, as sleep draws near, feel that quiet ambition soften into calm. Feel the ancient rhythm of the Phoenician coast settle into your breath. Feel the warm glow of furnaces, the soft gleam of glass, the deep hue of purple dye, and the distant creaking of wooden ships all blending together into a gentle, timeless lullaby. You drift deeper and deeper and deeper still, across a sea of history that whispers softly, endlessly, carrying you toward rest. The alphabet that changed the world. There is a quiet miracle in the world, one so familiar that we rarely stop to notice it. It is in every message ever written, every sign ever carved, every letter on every page you have ever read. It exists in chalk on stone, in ink on parchment, in glowing digital screens. It carries poems, laws, prayers, dreams, and whispered thoughts from one person to another across centuries. Tonight, we drift into the story of that miracle, the alphabet. Not just any alphabet, but the one that became the ancestor of so many others. The alphabet that changed the world, shaped civilizations, and carried memory forward when voices faded. And like so many quiet revolutions, it began not in a palace or under the command of a king, but in simple seaside towns along the ancient Mediterranean shore. As you settle deeper into your pillow and let your breath slow, imagine the sky just after dusk. A soft, blue haze settles across a small Phoenician harbour. The sea glows faintly with the last reflection of the sun. The air is warm and still, touched by the faint scent of cedar, salt, and burning oil lamps. The world feels unhurried, gentle, and suspended in a timeless evening. Walk with me now along the shoreline, slowly, as if each step carries you deeper into calm. Wooden boats rest in the shallows. Their hulls creak softly with the shifting tide. Fishermen coil their nets. Merchants carry baskets of goods from ship to shore. But behind this familiar scene, something extraordinary grows quietly, an idea that will outlive empires. Imagine a small building near the water, a simple room with open windows, its walls lined with clay tablets, fragments of pottery, and rolls of papyrus. A lamp glows inside, illuminating the figure of a scribe sitting at a low stone table. His back is straight, his expression calm, and before him lies a sheet of papyrus smoothed with careful hands. He dips a reed pen into a small pot of ink. The ink is dark, a mixture of soot and gum, thick enough to cling to the reed's tip. And then, with a steady hand, he draws a mark. Not a picture, not a complex symbol. A mark. Simple, direct, a sound captured on a surface. This mark is a letter, one of the first true letters. Take a slow breath as you imagine the elegance of it, a symbol so simple it can be learned by anyone, and so powerful that it will reshape the way humans communicate. Before this alphabet existed, writing was a world of complexity. Egyptian hieroglyphs were beautiful but elaborate. Mesopotamian cuneiform was vast and difficult to master. Both systems required years of specialized training. They belonged to scribes, priests, and elites, guardians of knowledge, not sharers of it. But on this quiet Phoenician coast, a new idea emerges. An idea built on simplicity, on accessibility, on the belief, intentional or accidental, that writing could belong not only to priests or kings, but to sailors, merchants, traders, and ordinary people. Let your breath slow again as we drift back in time to understand how this alphabet came to be. Long before the alphabet took its recognisable shape, early traders along the Levantine coast needed a quick way to record transactions. Lists of goods, tallies of supplies, notes on trade agreements. These were not prayers carved for eternity. They were daily tasks, fleeting transactions. Traders needed something simple and fast. They did not need pictures. They did not need ceremonial symbols. They needed sounds. Sounds that could be written quickly. Sounds that could be remembered easily. Sounds that could form words. So they began creating symbols, not to represent ideas, but to represent sounds from their own spoken language. This was the beginning of phonetic writing. Imagine the first such symbols drawn into wet clay with a pointed stick. Lines, loops, small shapes, each one carrying a single sound, each one fitting neatly beside another to form a word. Now imagine a merchant seated at a wooden table near the harbour. He leans over a piece of papyrus, writing a short note. Cedar planks delivered. Jars of purple dye exchanged. Workers paid. Instead of filling a page with complex drawings, he writes a string of small, elegant marks, each representing a sound. The note takes minutes, not hours, and in that simplicity lies transformation. As night gathers outside, picture the stars emerging slowly above him, bright points of light sprinkled across the dark. The Phoenicians, sailors that they were, trusted these lights to guide them through the night. And just as they read the sky, they learned to read the marks on papyrus, symbol by symbol, sound by sound, word by word. The alphabet spreads, first by merchants, then by sailors, then across the sea. Take another slow breath. Imagine those letters travelling across the Mediterranean, tucked into the pockets of traders or painted onto cargo lists. Letters carried to Cyprus, to Crete, to the Aegean, to Greece. And when the Greeks encountered this simple, elegant system, they adopted it, modified it, expanded it. They added vowels. They reshaped letters. They named them alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And from these humble shapes grew the entire library of Greek literature. Then came Latin. Then came the alphabets of Europe. Then came nearly every letter you know today. And yet, if we drift back to the quiet origins, it all began here, in Phoenicia, beside the soft glow of harbour lamps. Picture the scribe again. He writes slowly, his hands steady but relaxed. You can hear the faint scratch of the reed pen against the papyrus. The glow of the lamp warms the stone table. The night outside deepens, dark and calm. Through the window, waves roll gently, each one carrying moonlight upon its crest. In this peaceful scene, let yourself relax deeper. The world becomes quiet, the scribe's presence steady, his breathing slow, his pen moves with methodical grace. Each stroke is deliberate, soothing, rhythmic, like a lullaby written instead of sung. Now imagine the letters more clearly. They are not the same shapes we know today, but you can see their ancestors within them. A bent line that will one day become A, a curved mark that will become C, a straight downward line that will become I. These ancient letters are like seeds, small, simple, potent with possibility. Outside the scribe's window, the city moves into its nighttime rhythm. Glassmakers extinguish their furnaces, dyers close their vats, traders finish their meals, families gather inside stone homes where oil lamps flicker and shadows dance gently across the walls. The wind drifts softly from the sea, carrying with it the distant scent of cedar and the murmur of distant laughter. The alphabet grows not from the halls of royalty, but from the hands of ordinary people living ordinary lives. Take a slow breath now, imagining how this new script slowly becomes a shared language of merchants. They scratch letters into clay tags tied to amphorae. They record prices, weights, and names. They carve short inscriptions into wooden boards that hang in markets. They even paint letters onto the sides of ships. When Phoenician sailors travel, they carry their alphabet with them. They speak it to each other as they review cargo. They teach it to foreign merchants who find the system wonderfully simple. Letters spread from port to port, like seeds drifting across fertile soil. Picture a sailor standing on the deck of a ship under starry sky. The ship drifts quietly across calm waters. The sailor holds a small tablet covered in letters. He runs his finger along the marks, practicing the sounds. He whispers them into the night. Faint, gentle syllables carried away by the breeze. The alphabet becomes part of him, part of his memory, part of his voice. Now, imagine nightfall in another port, in Cyprus, perhaps, or Crete, or on a distant island where Phoenician traders have docked. They unload goods, jars of oil, bundles of papyrus, coils of rope, shimmering glass vessels. As they trade, they teach the local merchants a few letters. Those merchants, fascinated, show the letters to their children. Soon, new hands write them, new voices speak them, new images take shape from them. The alphabet begins to live, not as a fixed object but as a growing miracle. Breathe in slowly, gathering the calm of this ancient world. Breathe out gently, letting go of the day's weight. The alphabet thrives because it is easy. It thrives because it is clear. It thrives because it allows anyone, farmer, sailor, trader, mother, child, to capture sound in line and shape. Imagine young students in an ancient Phoenician workshop sitting in a semicircle around a teacher. Each child holds a small piece of clay. They press their stylus into the soft surface, copying the teacher's strokes. First one letter, then another, then a third. Their hands are big, clumsy, but their eyes bright. They laugh softly when their shapes turn crooked. The teacher smiles, patient and warm. You sit among them. You carve a letter? It is simple, beautiful, yours. As the night deepens, picture the teacher placing his hand gently on your shoulder. The room grows quiet. The lamp burns low. Outside, waves whisper their ancient rhythm. You feel safe, calm, and connected to a world far older than memory. This alphabet will last thousands of years. It will travel to Greece, where it becomes the foundation of Western thought. It will flow into Latin, becoming the root of countless languages. It will shape poetry, philosophy, science, and song. And yet here, on this quiet evening, it is simply a group of children copying shapes in soft clay, the gentle beginning of something profound. Now imagine centuries drifting by. The letters change, slowly, subtly. New cultures mould them into new shapes. But the core idea remains untouched. Symbols for sounds. A simple, elegant key to language. Phoenician scribes fade into history. Their cities rise and fall. Empires sweep across the land. The cedar forests thin. The dye vats quiet. The glass furnaces cool. But the letters remain. They remain in Greek inscriptions carved on temple walls. They remain in Latin manuscripts preserved in monasteries. They remain in modern alphabets printed in books and glowing on screens. Every note ever written, every poem ever shared, every message ever whispered from one person to another, they all trace their lineage back to these quiet coastlines. Take one more slow breath. Let your body feel heavy and supported. Let your mind soften into stillness. The distant sound of waves, imagined yet vivid, fills your ears. The glow of the scribe's lamp warms the darkness beneath your eyelids. The alphabet changed the world, not with noise, but with quiet clarity. Not with power, but with simplicity. Not with force, but with openness. And tonight, it carries you gently toward rest, symbol by symbol, breath by breath, into the soft darkness of a peaceful sleep. The shipbuilders who connected civilizations. There are people in history whose hands never held crowns, whose names were not carved on palace walls, and whose voices never echoed through royal courts. And yet, quietly, patiently, and with wood and rope and the rhythm of the sea, they shaped the course of the ancient world. Tonight, we drift into the story of these people, the shipbuilders of the Phoenician coast, the craftsmen whose creations connected continents, carried ideas across oceans, and stitched together civilizations through the patient art of building vessels that trusted the wind. As you settle your body deeper into stillness and let your breath slow, imagine a coastline at dawn. The sky glows softly, not bright, but gentle, like milk poured into blue water. The harbour is still, its surface reflecting faint colours of early morning. No sails move, no voices carry, only the occasional creak of wood breaks the silence. Walk slowly toward this harbour with me. Feel the cool stone beneath your bare feet. Hear the distant whisper of waves brushing against the hulls of sleeping boats. Smell the mix of cedar wood, salt, tar, and damp rope, the scent of a world built by hands and sea. This is a Phoenician shipyard, a place where dreams become vessels, a place where wood takes shape under patient craftsmanship, a place where men rise before the sun to begin their quiet ancient work. As you step closer, picture the silhouettes of shipwrights emerging from the shadows. Their tunics are simple, their hair tied back with cloth. They carry tools worn smooth by years of use. Their movements are steady, unhurried. There is no rush in shipbuilding, only rhythm, precision, and trust. One of them pauses to look at the horizon, a gesture so subtle, yet filled with meaning. For these shipbuilders, Know that the sea is not only their workplace, but their teacher, their companion, and the keeper of secrets they must understand. The sun lifts a little higher. The first rays spill over the mountains behind the city, washing the yard in warm light. Bowls of water shimmer beside half-shaped planks. Ropes lie coiled like sleeping serpents. Wooden frames stand like ribs, waiting to be covered with skin. Let your breath fall into the same rhythm as this place. Slow, even, patient, as though your body itself were being shaped by gentle hands into a vessel of rest. Now, walk deeper into the shipyard. A cedar log, freshly brought from the mountains, lies in the centre. Its scent is rich and comforting. Resinous, warm, calming. Shipbuilders gather around it, running their hands along the grain. They choose each log with care. A ship's strength begins not with rope or sail, but with wood. Wood that once stood tall and silent in the forests of Lebanon. The shipbuilders know every type of wood. Cedar for strength, pine for flexibility, oak for durability, sycamore for smaller pieces. Imagine the sound of axes striking the cedar, not violent, but rhythmic, almost musical. Each strike sends a soft echo through the yard. Chips fall, catching morning light as they scatter. The shipbuilders work in unison. One carving, one smoothing, one measuring, one shaping. These men do not speak much. They communicate with gestures, glances, and familiarity born from years of labour together. The ship grows slowly before them, like a living creature taking form. The ribs of the ship come first, curved beams rising gently from the keel. They resemble the skeleton of a giant fish laid upon the shore. The shipbuilders stand beside it, small figures compared to the vessel they are creating, yet every stroke of their hands carries centuries of inherited knowledge. As you watch them, feel a wave of calm settle over you. The repetition of their work, the sanding, the hammering, the fitting, lulls your thoughts into stillness. There is a serenity in creation, a peace found in shaping something with purpose. In this ancient yard, each ship carries not only goods, but stories, languages, cultures. Through these ships, the Phoenicians will bring purple dye to distant empires, glass to islands far across the sea, cedar to Egypt, wine to Cyprus, metalwork to Greece, and in return they will bring home grain, spices, music, myths, scripts, and ideas. All because these shipbuilders knew how to coax strength and grace from wood. Now breathe deeply, letting the scent of imagined cedar calm you. The ship's hull begins to take shape, plank by plank, each fitted so precisely that the gaps between them are almost invisible. Tar is heated nearby in clay pots, its smoky scent drifting lazily through the air. The builders brush it along the seams, sealing the vessel, ensuring it will not leak even when waves strike hard. The sun climbs higher. The heat warms your skin. The shipbuilders wipe sweat from their brows, their muscles glistening with effort. But their movements remain steady, deliberate. A ship cannot be rushed, just as sleep cannot be forced. Both arrive through patience, rhythm, and trust. By midday, the ship's hull is nearly complete. Shade cloths are stretched above the workers. The sound of tools continues. The gentle rasp of files smoothing rough edges, the tap of wooden mallets fitting joints, the swish of brushes spreading resin. A group of young apprentices carry coils of rope, thick and sturdy. Rope is life at sea. It holds the mast, ties the sails, secures the cargo, anchors the ship. The apprentices unwind the coils, running their fingers through the fibres. They test the strength. They tie knots learned from fathers, uncles, grandfathers. Imagine standing with them, letting the rope slide through your hands. Rough yet reassuring. Its texture grounds you. Its weight feels safe. It smells faintly of salt. As the apprentices practice knots, the master shipwright stands beside the growing vessel, examining every angle. He is a man shaped by years of wind and work. His hair is streaked with grey. His face carries lines carved by sun and sea, but his eyes are sharp, filled with the quiet wisdom of someone who knows the sea deeply. He touches the hull. He listens to its sound when tapped. He nods, approving. The ship is strong. Now imagine the mast being raised, a long, elegant beam of cedar, polished until it gleams. Men gather around it, lifting together in a coordinated movement. Their breaths align, their muscles strain, and slowly, gracefully, the mast rises. It slides into position, secured with thick ropes. Standing tall, it casts a long shadow across the yard. This ship is beginning to feel alive. Take a slow breath, letting your body mirror the rise and fall of the shipyard's quiet energy. You are safe here, sheltered among builders, in a place where creation is calm and steady. As afternoon unfolds, the sailmakers arrive. They carry bundles of linen, folded carefully. They measure the mast, the boom, the width of the deck. Then they spread the linen across a long wooden platform, sewing pieces together in slow, smooth strokes. The sound of the needle slipping through fabric is soft, hypnotic. Their stitches are even, deliberate, forming a sail that will one day harness the wind itself. You can almost hear the faint flutter of fabric as they shake it gently in the light breeze. It smells of sun, cloth, and possibility. This sail will carry the ship across seas where stars guide, where distant lands await, where trade routes shimmer like threads connecting the edges of the known world. As evening approaches, the ship nears completion. The shipbuilders wipe dust from their arms. They wash tools in water barrels. The master shipwright circles the vessel one final time. He touches the hull. He nods again. It is time. The launch will be tomorrow at dawn. Now imagine the night settling upon the shipyard. The sky deepens into indigo. Stars appear, bright and soft. Lanterns flicker along the docks, their reflections trembling in the water. The nearly finished ship rests silently, its dark silhouette rising like a sleeping creature cradled by moonlight. You sit on a smooth piece of driftwood, watching the lanterns glow. The scent of warm tar lingers in the air. The sea breathes softly. The shipyard is quiet, peaceful. Workers have gone home. Families gather behind closed doors, sharing bread and wine. Only the gentle lap of waves remains. Let your breath slow to that rhythm. The hush of waves, the sigh of wood, the whisper of wind. When dawn comes, the shipbuilders return, their eyes still heavy with sleep but their spirits alert. Today marks the birth of a vessel. They gather ropes, they gather beams, they gather their strength. Together, they push. The ship slides forward across wooden rollers, slow at first, then easier. The hull groans softly as it moves, the workers chant in low tones, their voices blending with the sound of scraping wood. And then, with a final surge, the ship glides into the water. For a moment, it floats awkwardly, rocking, adjusting. Then it steadies, buoyed by the cradle of the sea. A cheer rises, but soft, restrained. These are not men of loud celebration. Their joy is quiet, deep, like the sea they serve. The ship is baptized in salt water. Its wood darkens slightly. Its ropes tighten. Its mast stands proudly, catching the morning sun. This vessel will travel far. It will carry purple dye, shimmering glass, cedar beams, bronze tools, fine textiles. It will travel to Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, Sicily, Carthage, and beyond. It will carry stories, languages, ideas. It will connect civilizations not through conquest, but through exchange. All because a handful of craftsmen rose every day before dawn, shaped wood patiently, worked with steady hands, and trusted the sea. Now imagine yourself stepping aboard this new ship. The deck feels firm beneath your feet. The wood is smooth, warm, and comforting. You walk to the bow. The sea stretches before you, calm, blue, endless. A gentle wind lifts the sail. The crew unties the ropes. The ship moves forward, not quickly, not dramatically, just smoothly, peacefully, the way dreams carry you. As the ship glides into open water, the horizon widens, the coastline shrinks, the sky grows vast. You lie down on the deck, using a coiled rope as a pillow. The sun warms your skin. The ship sways gently. Sailors speak quietly nearby, their voices blending with waves. You feel weightless, safe, carried. You close your eyes. The world becomes the creaking of wood, the rustle of sails, the whisper of the wind, the heartbeat of the sea. These shipbuilders, humble, unknown, connected civilizations. They never sought fame. They built not for glory, but for purpose. And tonight, their quiet dedication carries you gently toward rest. Let the sound of the waves inside your mind soften your thoughts. Let the memory of wood and rope calm you. Let the ship beneath you cradle you. You drift, slowly, softly, peacefully, toward the horizon of sleep. Beliefs, gods, and the sacred rituals of the coast. There are places in the ancient world where religion was not a separate part of life, not something reserved only for temples or priests, but a quiet rhythm woven into everything, into the sound of the sea, the glow of sunrise, the careful shaping of wood, the dyeing of cloth, the building of ships, the speaking of letters. Along the Phoenician coast, belief was not an idea, it was a presence, a breath, a living companion. Tonight we drift into that presence, into a world where gods moved with the tide, where rituals were whispered at dawn, where offerings flickered like stars beside the waves. A world of calm devotion, soft footsteps, gentle chants, and ancient faith cradled by the sea. As you settle your body, feel the weight of the day slip away. Breathe slowly. Let your thoughts begin to loosen, like rope unwinding from a wooden post. Let the night grow quiet around you. Now imagine a coastline in the very first moments of morning. The horizon glows with pale gold. The sea stretches outward in silky blues. A soft breeze moves across the water, carrying the faint scent of salt and distant cedarwood. Everything feels untouched, as if the world has just been created. On a small rise overlooking the harbour stands a simple stone shrine. Not large, not grand, just a lone structure of carved blocks, weathered by centuries of wind. At its centre burns a small flame sheltered inside a bronze bowl, a sacred fire tended through the night by priests who believe that flame mirrors the eternal fire of the divine. You walk slowly toward it. Each step through the cool morning sand quiets your thoughts further. A priest in linen robes kneels beside the flame. His face is serene, lit softly by the flickering light. He whispers a prayer in the ancient language of the coast. You do not need to understand the words. The tone is enough. Low, calm, steady, like waves rolling in and slipping back. This is a ritual repeated every morning and every evening, a greeting to the unseen forces believed to guide the sea, protect the ships, and watch over the people. Take a slow breath, letting the warmth of the imagined flame ease your body deeper into rest. Beyond the shrine lies the city, still stirring into life, and woven through every home, every workshop, every street are symbols of belief, small carved figures, amulets hung on doors, jars of sacred oil, and small altars tucked into the corners of rooms. The Phoenicians worshipped many gods, but none were distant or fearsome. Their gods felt close, close like weather, like the wind, like the steady cycle of seasons. They named them, honoured them, thanked them. They asked for protection before voyages, blessings before trade, guidance before decisions. Walk now through the quiet city with me. The streets are narrow, lined with stone walls and wooden balconies. Birds begin to sing from the rooftops. Women step into the doorways, carrying jars of water. At several homes, small incense burners glow, sending twists of fragrant smoke upward into the lightening sky. Follow one of these trails of smoke. It leads to a modest courtyard where an older woman places a small offering at an altar. Perhaps figs, perhaps bread, perhaps a simple flower. She bows her head. Her prayer is not grand. It is intimate, soft, private. She thanks the goddess Asherah for protecting her family through the night. Breathe in slowly, imagining the scent of incense rising softly around you. Sweet, calming, warm. Asherah, the mother goddess, was present in every Phoenician home. She symbolized life, fertility, comfort, and the gentle cycles of the seasons. Unlike the gods of distant temples, she lived among the people. Her image, a simple wooden pole or carved figure, stood in courtyards, gardens, and beside doorways. Continue walking. Further down the street you hear faint chanting. A group of fishermen stand near the shore, facing the rising sun. They murmur prayers to Yam, the god of the sea. Not a violent deity, but one to be respected. The sea was their livelihood, their path to distant worlds, and their greatest uncertainty. Before they pushed their boats into the water, they offered droplets of wine into the tide, watching the ripples carry their devotion outward. You stand behind them quietly, listening to their voices blend with the rhythmic, eternal movement of the waves. Let the sound of the tide inside your imagination soften your breathing. Let it wash over your thoughts gently. And now imagine turning toward a small temple built near the harbour. Its stone entrance is framed by columns carved with patterns of waves, birds, and flowing hair, the symbols of the god Melkart. He was the protector of sailors, the guardian of cities, the embodiment of strength. Inside the temple, a priest lights oil lamps one by one, filling the chamber with warm amber light. You step inside. The air is cool. The walls are lined with carvings of anchors, lions, and cedars. At the centre stands a statue of Melkart, not towering, not imposing, but carved with smooth features and steady gaze. His hand rests gently on a stylized lion. His presence feels calm, patient, dependable. The priest stirs a bowl of scented oil. He spreads a few drops across the statue's base. The fragrance rises. Pine, resin, warm earth. You breathe it in, letting it soothe your senses. The priest nods to you, silently, peacefully. As you leave the temple, the city has awakened fully. But instead of noise, imagine quiet movement. Craftsmen opening shutters, traders arranging small altars for good fortune, mothers lighting lamps near household shrines, elders sitting beneath sycamore trees telling stories of gods and ancestors. The Phoenicians believed that the divine filled every part of life, in the wind that pushed their ships, in the fire that hardened their clay, in the light that tinted their glass, in the purple dye that enriched their cities, in the alphabet that carried their thoughts. Now walk to the beach. The sun is higher now. The waves sparkle. Children gather seashells and place them in a small pile beside a carved stone. This is a simple seaside offering, a tradition passed down for generations. They laugh softly, their faces bright with early light. For them, ritual is not heavy. It is gentle. It is part of play, part of learning, part of being connected to the land. You kneel beside them and pick up a small shell, smooth, warm, striped with faint purple. You place it gently onto the pile. The gesture feels calming, grounding, peaceful. Now look out toward the sea. A group of sailors stands in a semicircle beside a ship preparing to depart. Their heads are bowed. A priest walks slowly along the shoreline, carrying a bowl of water mixed with ash and crushed cedar leaves. He dips his hand into the bowl and flicks droplets onto the hull of the ship. Each droplet glistens in the sunlight, blessing the vessel. Olam, the priest whispers softly, a word meaning eternity, world, cycle. The sailors echo it in quiet voices. You hear the chant, low, gentle, rhythmic, merging with the sound of waves. Let your breath move with that rhythm, in and out, slow, peaceful, steady. The priest then places his hand upon the bow of the ship, murmuring a final blessing for safe travel and favourable winds. The sailors place small offerings into the sea, grains, olive leaves, pieces of cedar bark. Each object floats for a moment, then drifts away, carried lightly by the tide. Now, step closer to the shoreline. Feel the water brush your toes. The sea is cool, calming. You close your eyes. For a moment, it feels as if the world is made entirely of breath, warmth, and gentle water. Phoenician rituals were never meant to inspire fear. They were acts of gratitude, of connection, of awareness. They were performed not in grand temples alone, but in kitchens, workshops, gardens, boats, markets, and along quiet stretches of beach. Now let your imagination drift further into evening. The sky darkens slowly. A soft purple glow spreads across the horizon. Lamps are lit in every home. Priests move through the streets carrying small bronze censers, releasing fragrance into the night, a reminder of the divine presence in the air. You follow one of them to a rooftop where families gather to watch the stars appear. The Phoenicians believed the stars were the eyes of the divine, watching gently from above. Sailors read them. Priests honoured them. Children whispered wishes to them. The priest on the rooftop raises his hands. He speaks a blessing, slow, melodic, soothing. His voice is carried by the warm evening breeze. The stars brighten. The sea below darkens into a soft velvet blue. Someone hands you a small cup of warm wine infused with herbs. You sip it slowly. It calms your body. It relaxes your shoulders. The breeze brushes your skin like a soft hand. On another rooftop nearby, musicians play simple instruments, flutes, lyres, gentle drums. Their melody is soft and drifting, as though the night itself is singing. The music blends with the priest's blessing, with the wind, with the memory of morning rituals. You lie back on a warm woven mat. Above you, the stars shimmer. Around you, the city glows in lantern light. Within you, a deep stillness settles. This ancient world feels safe, gentle, glowing with quiet devotion. As you close your eyes, imagine the soft rhythm of the sea again, the eternal heartbeat of this coast. The Phoenicians believed the sea was alive, listening, responding, guiding, and tonight it guides you inward, toward rest. The rituals of this coast were never about control. They were about harmony, with nature, with the divine, with each other. They were about living gently, moving gently, praying gently. Now let that gentleness cover you like a warm blanket. Feel the presence of the sacred fire beside the harbour. Feel the fragrance of incense drifting through the streets. Feel the calm gaze of stone gods watching over the shore. Feel the soft glow of lanterns swaying in the wind. Feel the waves breathing slowly in the dark. You are safe. You are held. You are drifting. The ancient gods of the coast, the mothers, the protectors, the sea guardians, the bringers of light, watch quietly as you fall deeper into sleep. Breathe softly, breathe slowly, let the night carry you, and drift, drift, drift into gentle dreaming. The rise of Tyre and the call of distant lands. There are some cities in ancient history that feel less like places and more like living spirits, restless, shimmering, pulsing with the rhythm of the sea. Tyre was one of them, a city born of waves and stone, carved by the hands of sailors who believed the world did not end at the horizon, but merely began there. Tonight, you step quietly into that world, into the soft glow of the Mediterranean dawn, where Tyre awakens like a slow-breathing giant rising from the sea. Imagine the early morning sky, pale and delicate above the water. The first hints of gold touch the waves. The world is silent except for the faint murmur of distant oars. From the mainland shore, Tyre appears almost like an illusion, an island crowned with towers, wrapped in stone walls, floating above the soft shimmer of the sea. A small wooden ferry waits near the water's edge. The boards are smooth, worn by countless journeys. You step inside. The ferryman pushes gently away from the shore, and the boat glides forward. The sea carries you quietly, its surface rippling in small silver circles around the bow. Closer and closer the island comes into view. The walls rise with a quiet confidence. Stone towers catch the morning light. Wooden docks stretch out like welcoming arms. The smell of the sea mixes with the distant scent of cedar, resin, and warm bread baking inside the city. By the time your feet touch the stone of Tyre's harbour, the gentle hum of life has already begun. Merchants sweep dust from their thresholds. Fishermen gut their early catch. Children run barefoot between stalls, laughing and waving to familiar faces. Traders untie ropes from mooring posts, preparing their ships for long voyages. Everywhere you look, there is movement, smooth, practiced, purposeful. Tyre was never a city content with silence. It carried an unspoken intention, a desire to reach outward, to belong not only to its island, but to the whole world. Walk deeper into the city. The streets twist gently between tall stone buildings. Wooden balconies hang overhead, draped with cloth and baskets of figs and olives. A baker pulls round loaves from a clay oven, steam rising from their crust. A potter shapes wet clay into vessels, his hands steady, deliberate. The rhythmic sound of a metalworker tapping bronze rings out from a distant workshop. Every corner holds a piece of Tyre's character, skill, craft, tradition, ambition. The city was known for many things: purple dye, skilled artisans, fine glass, sturdy ships. But its greatest strength was its people, sailors who trusted the wind, merchants who memorized every curve of the coast, shipbuilders who shaped cedar into vessels that could survive storms, and travellers who carried stories between continents. Now continue toward the upper terraces of the island. A gentle climb brings you to a wide overlook. The sea spreads out below like an endless sheet of silver blue. 2 harbours. Embrace the island, one open to the sea, one calm and sheltered. Dozens of ships sway gently on the water, their masts rising like tall pillars, their sails rolled and tied. Some vessels are small coastal traders, others are large merchant ships meant for journeys far beyond sight. Every one of them feels like a heartbeat of the city. The rise of Tyre began with these ships. Long before other kingdoms dared to cross deep waters, the people of Tyre ventured outward. They pushed past familiar currents. They followed the stars. They learned the moods of the sea. And where most saw danger, Tyrians saw opportunity. New markets, new lands, new connections. Look now toward the shipyards. Workers spread long cedar planks across stone supports. Their tools scrape and cut with calm focus. Each piece of wood is shaped meticulously. The hull forms slowly. A curved ribcage of a vessel that will soon carry people and goods across the vast Mediterranean. Nearby, sailmakers sit cross-legged beneath shaded cloths, stitching together great sheets of linen. Their needles pass through fabric with rhythmic precision. The sails will catch wind like wings. Further down, ropes are twisted and knotted. Tar is warmed in clay pots. Storage jars are washed and prepared. Every detail is part of the same purpose: movement beyond the horizon. And beyond that horizon, Tyre's influence spread. Imagine ships from Tyre arriving in Cyprus, in Egypt, in Crete, in Greece. Picture Tyrian merchants stepping onto distant shores, carrying goods wrapped in woven cloth, shimmering glass beads, fragrant oils, bronze tools, cedar timber, purple-dyed textiles reserved for kings. In return, they brought home grain, gold, ivory, spices, stories and knowledge, Tyre became not just a city, but a bridge, a link between worlds. Now walk toward the heart of the island. Here stands a temple dedicated to Melkart, the protector of the city. Its columns are carved from pale stone. The entrance is marked with symbols of lions, waves, and cedar branches. Inside, oil lamps glow softly, their flames casting warm amber light onto the polished floor. The scent of incense fills the chamber, gentle, sweet, smoky. It clings to the air like memory. A priest in simple robes moves with calm purpose as he tends the lamps. In his presence, the world feels quiet, timeless. Melkart was believed to guide sailors, protect ships, and keep watch over travellers. He was the spirit of Tyre itself, enduring, steady, courageous. The temple is peaceful. You stand for a moment in that warmth, listening to the soft rustle of incense smoke curling upward. The air feels thick with centuries of devotion. Stepping outside again, the sun has risen higher. The marketplace is alive. Traders haggle softly. Glassmakers display shimmering vessels. Weavers spread out dyed cloth. The colours are deep and rich. Reds, golds, greens, and the famous purple that made Tyre legendary. The purple dye, drawn from murex shells, harvested along rocky shores, was more precious than silver. Only Tyrians mastered the craft fully. It took days of work, gathering shells, crushing them, fermenting the liquid, exposing it to light. The colour changed slowly, layer by layer, until cloth dipped within emerged a royal shade that no other city could replicate. This dye travelled to kings, priests, and rulers throughout the ancient world. Tyre became known as the city whose colours crowned the powerful. As the day moves forward, the sounds of the city deepen. Footsteps on stone, the call of merchants, the hum of people talking beneath shaded awnings, the gentle slap of waves against the docks, follow the roads toward the far edge of the island. From here, the mainland appears distant, softened by a veil of heat. The sea glitters. Boats travel back and forth carrying goods, people, stories. Tyre's island position protected it for centuries. Empires rose and fell around it, but Tyre endured, sometimes bending, sometimes retreating, always strong. Eventually, its influence reached so far west that new cities were founded by its settlers. The most famous was Carthage, which would one day become a mighty power. But even at its height, Carthage never forgot the mother city that sent its people out into the world. Tyre was the beginning of countless journeys. Now imagine the afternoon deepening, the light shifting into warm gold. Shadows lengthen across the narrow streets. Sailors gather near the docks, preparing for departure. Crews carry jars of provisions aboard. Dates, lentils, water, salted fish. They tie knots with practiced ease. They test the sails. They check the rigging. You stand beside one ship as its captain steps onto the deck. He looks out toward the open sea, not with hesitation, but with familiarity. The sea is his companion, his teacher, his path. The wind is soft, warm. The waves move gently. A perfect day to begin a journey. As the ship is pushed from the dock, the water shifts beneath the hull. Sails unfurl in smooth arcs. The vessel begins to move, quiet and steady. The city watches. Departures are part of life here. Constant, rhythmic, expected. You watch the ship glide into the open water. It moves further, its sail catching sunlight, until it becomes just another shape upon the horizon. Beyond that horizon, new lands wait. Tyre's strength always lay in that open sea, in its willingness to let its people go outward again and again, guided by skill, courage, and curiosity. Now imagine the sun setting. The sky turns rose-coloured, then orange, then soft violet. Lamps glow inside the city. The sea darkens into deep blue. The air cools. Tyre rests, not silent, but peaceful. From the walls, you can see the last light on the waves, the small boats returning home, the distant embers of the day disappearing into the sea's wide embrace. The rise of Tyre was never sudden. It was a slow, steady building of skill, of knowledge, of courage, a city, shaped by water, lifted by wind, carried by ambition, and strengthened by generations who trusted the world beyond the horizon. As night settles fully over the island, the sea moves in calm, steady rhythms. Waves brush softly against the rocks. Lanterns shimmer on the water. The world narrows into gentle sound and warm darkness. The city that once commanded the sea grows quiet. The horizon that called so many onward fades into starlight. and Tyre, ancient and enduring, rests in the embrace of the night. Its stories settle softly, its harbours grow still, its ships sleep upon quiet water, and everything grows calm. Carthage and the legacy that spread westward. There are civilizations whose stories feel like distant echoes, carried across centuries by the wind, faint but persistent, like the final notes of a song that refuses to fade. Among these ancient voices, one rises from the shores of North Africa, a voice shaped by salt, cedar, courage, and long horizons. This is the story of Carthage, the great daughter of Tyre, a city that began as a quiet colony and grew into a power whose influence stretched across the Mediterranean and deep into the memory of the ancient world. Imagine, for a moment, the early dawn along the coast of Tunisia. The sky spread softly above calm water, painted in pale hues of rose and silver. Gentle waves touch the shore, leaving small curls of foam behind. Birds circle lazily in the warm air. The world is cool, unhurried, peaceful. In this light, Carthage appears, not the sprawling city it would one day become, but a young settlement, its first stone walls rising modestly above the curve of the bay. The sound of early life drifts through the stillness. Carpenters smoothing cedar beams, fishermen preparing nets, clay ovens warming for the morning's bread. Once, long before ships filled its great harbours, Carthage was nothing more than an outpost, a distant spark kindled by settlers from Tyre. They sailed from the Levant with hopes of new trade, new land, new possibilities. They brought with them their gods, their alphabet, their crafts, and their unshakable instinct to follow the sea wherever it might lead. Walk now through the quiet settlement. The streets are narrow paths of packed earth. Houses are simple, built from stone and timber. The scent of cedar resin drifts through the air. A woman hangs dyed cloth in the morning light, the folds shimmering with deep purples and warm reds. A group of children runs past, laughing, carrying hollow shells they have collected from the water's edge. At the centre of this early Carthage rises a small shrine, an altar of carved stone dedicated to Tanit and Balhaman, the protectors of the city. Symbols of the gods are etched into the stone: a raised hand, a crescent shape, a stylized face engraved with calm features. An incense pot smoulders beside the shrine, releasing aromatic curls that float upward, dissolving into the warm morning air. In the earliest days, this place is quiet, simple, growing slowly. But even now, there is something unmistakable in the way the settlers move and build. A sense that this is not just another outpost, it is the beginning of something enduring. Follow the paths toward the coastline. The sea is a wide, open expanse. On the horizon, faint shapes of ships appear, their sails catching the morning wind. These are traders, some from Tyre, others from Cyprus, others still from distant islands. Carthage was founded for this purpose, to be a crossroads, a hub, a place where goods, languages, and cultures intertwined like threads in a woven tapestry. The settlers introduced new crops to the soil: olives, figs, grapes. They experiment with irrigation channels, guiding water through arid ground. They build clay kilns to fire pottery, develop tools for metalwork, and establish markets where goods from across the Mediterranean can be exchanged. With each passing season, the settlement expands. Stone replaces timber, courtyards grow wide, streets straighten, walls rise, workshops multiply. Carthage begins to feel not like a daughter city, but like a force of its own. Now imagine standing on a hill overlooking the bay. Below, the city opens in wide, circular patterns. The water curves inward, forming what will one day be one of the most remarkable structures in the ancient world, the double harbour of Carthage. The great circular military harbour lies within the larger rectangular trading port. From above, it appears like a perfect ring of stone lined with ship sheds. Each shed holds a vessel, ready to sail. In the centre of the military harbour stands a small island with a tower marked by the city's insignia, serving both as a lookout and a symbol of Carthage's maritime strength. Workers move along the docks with calm purpose. They repair hulls, twist rope fibres, paint symbols on the sides of ships. The scent of tar warms the air. Canvas sails flap gently on drying racks. Wooden beams lie stacked in orderly rows, ready for construction. Carthage's ships are everywhere, sleek, fast, engineered with remarkable precision. They cut through water with ease. They navigate storms with practiced confidence. They travel further than many cities dared to imagine. And as the ships move outward, so does Carthage's influence. Picture the Mediterranean as a vast sunlit map. To the east lie the cities of Phoenicia. To the north, the islands of Sicily and Sardinia. Beyond them, Etruscan shores. Westward, distant Iberian lands. Southward, the deserts of Africa. Along all these routes, Carthaginian traders travel. They bring goods in their holds, purple cloth folded in cedar-lined chests, glass beads wrapped in straw, jars of olive oil sealed with wax, sweet wine carried in clay amphorae, carved ivory figurines, metal tools, and fine textiles dyed in patterns known only to Carthaginian looms. Wherever they arrive, people recognise their craftsmanship. Tyrian purple, now produced in Carthage as well, becomes a colour worn by rulers and priests. Carthaginian glass is prized for its clarity. Their agricultural products, figs, wine, oil, fill markets across the ancient world. The city grows wealthy, but Carthage does not rise through wealth alone. Walk deeper into the city, into the heart of its neighbourhoods. Here, life unfolds with calm continuity. Families gather in shaded courtyards. Women grind grain on stone slabs. Children practice writing on broken pottery shards, shaping letters carried across the sea from the Phoenician homeland. Men craft furniture from cedar, carve decorative figurines, weave fabrics in muted gold and soft blue. The smell of baking bread mixes with the sweetness of date honey. Water trickles through small channels running along the streets. Cats rest in patches of sunlight. The air is warm but carries a faint breeze from the water. In the evenings, lamps light up doorways. Families sit together on low stools. Merchants discuss the day's trade. Musicians pluck soft notes on lyres and reed pipes. The city glows. Its culture grows richer, unique, shaped by both its Phoenician roots and the lands it touches. Traditions blend, rituals deepen. Carthage becomes its own world, familiar yet distinct. Now step through a wide archway toward the city's political centre. Officials gather in shaded halls, discussing alliances, trade policies, navigation routes, harvest yields. Carthage is organised carefully, led by magistrates, councils and elders who weigh decisions with slow deliberation. Unlike many ancient states, no single king sits above them. Carthage is governed by balance, by discussion, negotiation, consensus. It is a structure built for endurance, and it endures. Decades pass, generations build, ships come and go. Carthage expands across the Mediterranean. Settlements take root in Sicily, Sardinia, the Balearic Islands, and along the coasts of Iberia. Each outpost becomes a link in a growing network, like beads strung across the sea. These colonies send back metals from Spanish mines, silver, copper, tin. They send dyed wool, fine ceramics, amber, and raw materials gathered from local tribes. Carthage becomes the centre of a vast exchange, connecting regions separated by sea and culture. Stand now in the shade of a grove near the edge of the city. Olive trees sway gently in the warm breeze. Their branches hold fruit in tight clusters. Beneath them, farmers work slowly, tending soil, pruning branches, gathering fallen leaves. Agriculture becomes one of the foundations of Carthaginian power. Vineyards stretch across fertile ground. Fields ripple with barley and wheat. Orchards offer figs, pomegranates, almonds. The land, once modest, yields abundance. Walk back toward the harbours. As evening approaches, the water turns dark blue. Ships return with low, steady movements, their hulls cutting through the glassy surface. Lanterns are hung from masts, glowing gently as they sway. Firepots along the docks flicker, illuminating workers guiding vessels into place. The great circular harbour gleams with reflected light. It stands as a symbol of Carthage's mastery of the sea, not merely as a power, but as a people who understood water, wind, and horizon better than most. Now picture the city at night. Homes glow with warm light, streets quiet. The distant waves murmur softly along the shore. The community settles into a calm rhythm. From the temple of Tanit, a thin plume of incense rises into the twilight sky. Carthage, in this moment, feels eternal, a city secure in its foundations, confident in its path, shaped by centuries of craft, trade, faith, and perseverance. Its legacy stretches far westward, carried by ships, by stories, by skills passed from hand to hand. The influence of the city reaches shores that few in the ancient world ever saw. Its presence becomes part of the very fabric of Mediterranean history, and though empires will rise, and storms will come, and oceans will shift their moods, the legacy remains, in the memory of trade routes, in the remnants of pottery, in the faint outlines of old harbours, in the stories whispered across centuries. For a city born from the sea, Carthage left its footprint on the land, on the old world, and on the quiet spaces between history and myth, a reminder of how far a people can reach when they follow the call of distant lands. And the night settles softly over the ancient coast as the last lamps dim and the sea rests in its timeless rhythm, holding the memory of the city in its calm and endless breath. And endless. The quiet decline of a seafaring people. There are endings in history that do not roar or shatter or collapse in an instant. Some endings arrive like the slow passing of a long twilight. Quiet, steady, imperceptible at first, the kind that slips over a people not with force, but with stillness. The decline of the Phoenicians was like this, a gentle dimming, a soft fading of sails. A people whose greatness once rose on the rhythm of the sea slowly found themselves receding into the background of empires rising around them. Picture the Mediterranean at dusk, its surface dimming into muted shades of pearl and grey. Small waves move in long, unbroken lines toward the shore. The air is warm, but carries the faint coolness of night. This is the world the Phoenicians knew, not in the noise of war or the rush of conquest, but in the steady pulse of tides, the glow of lanterns on wooden ships, and the quiet dignity of their coastal cities. Imagine one of those cities now, perhaps Sidon or Byblos or Tyre in its later years. The day is ending, the sky softens into violet, merchants close their stalls, sailmakers gather their tools, children run through narrow streets one last time before nightfall, and there, standing at the edge of the harbour, are ships, fewer than there once were. Their masts creak gently in the evening breeze, their hulls, once freshly repaired and brightly painted, now bear the marks of long journeys and long neglect. They are still beautiful, still strong, but something in the air speaks of change, not danger, not destruction, simply change. Walk along the stone pathways of the harbour. Once, this place thrummed with energy. Shouting traders, heavy footfalls of sailors carrying goods, carpenters hammering planks, ropes slapping against wood, ships arriving by the dozens. Now the soundscape is softer. The calls of gulls echo through the stillness. Water laps quietly against stone. A few workers remain, sorting jars of oil and bundles of rope, but their pace is slow, unhurried. The decline of a seafaring people often begins not with a single moment, but with a series of gentle shifts. New powers rising, old allies changing, trade routes adjusting, the world growing wider and more complex. Follow the path deeper into the city. Homes built of pale stone line the narrow streets. Balconies of carved wood cast long shadows. Lamps begin to glow behind woven curtains. Families gather for evening meals of lentils, fish, and warm flatbread. They speak softly. Their conversations turn not to distant voyages or far-off markets, but to the rhythm of local life, harvests, marriages, small concerns of the day. There is comfort in this simplicity. The Phoenicians had once stretched their reach across the entire Mediterranean, founding colonies, establishing trade posts, connecting cultures with their ships and their knowledge of the sea. But the world changed. Empires grew stronger. Assyria in the east, Babylon, then Persia, then Greece, and eventually Rome. Each new conqueror arrived with armies, with ambitions, with new political realities, and the Phoenicians, instead of resisting every change with force, adapted quietly. Sometimes they negotiated their independence. Sometimes they paid tribute. Sometimes they allied with stronger powers. They survived not by challenging empires, but by living alongside them. But survival has its price. As these empires expanded, they redirected trade. They drew wealth into new capitals. They built their own fleets. They imposed their own systems. Slowly, the role of the Phoenicians, once the undisputed masters of maritime trade, began to soften. Walk now toward the marketplace. It is quieter than in earlier centuries. The stalls still display their goods. Glass vessels shimmering in the lamplight, jars of fragrant oil, textiles dyed in the familiar purples and blues. But there are fewer foreign traders. The voices heard here are mostly local. A sense of modesty, of scaled-down life, settles over the market. A glassmaker sits at his stall, arranging small beads and delicate flasks. His hands are steady, his craft refined. The glass glows with soft, translucent colours. It is the same skill passed down through generations, unchanged, patient. Even as the world shifts, these artisans continue their work with the same calm dedication as their ancestors. This too is how a people decline, not by losing who they are, but by becoming quieter versions of themselves. Follow the path upward. From the hill at the centre of the city, you see the coastline stretching out in both directions. Soft lanterns glow across the harbour. The open sea reflects the final light of day. There is no urgency here, no unrest, only the sense of a people settling into a gentler existence. The Phoenicians did not disappear in a single event. Their decline unfolded over centuries, woven into the rise of larger powers, yet their cultural memory, their language, their traditions continued quietly through local life. The alphabet they nurtured lived on. The crafts they perfected were adopted by others. Their colonies survived, evolved, transformed. Even Carthage, founded by Tyre, rose to extraordinary heights before meeting its own fate centuries later. But here, in the mother cities along the Levantine coast, life entered a long exhale. Walked back toward the harbour one final time. Night has fully arrived. Lanterns sway gently from wooden posts. The water glows faintly with reflected light. A handful of fishermen push a small boat into the sea. Their voices murmur softly as they work. They move with practiced calm, with memories inherited from generations who once commanded entire coastlines. The stars emerge above the city, bright points scattered across a clear night sky. Phoenician sailors once read these constellations as guides, as companions, as markers that led them across unfamiliar waters. Now the stars shine quietly, watching, over a people who no longer travel as far, but who still hold the old knowledge deep within their memory. The decline of the Phoenicians was not a tragedy, it was a settling, a quieting of a long chapter. A people who once shaped vast networks now found themselves folded gently into the currents of larger empires. And yet, even in their decline, the spirit of their identity lingers, in the calm movements of fishermen, in the soft glow of glass in a shop window, in the fragrance of cedar drifting from a workshop, in the gentle pattern of waves brushing against the shore. Their presence remains, not loud, not dominant, but enduring. As the night deepens over the ancient city, the sea moves with slow, steady motion. The ships at harbour rock in small, rhythmic arcs. The wind cools, the lamps flicker, the coastal air settles into a peaceful hush. Above it all, the stars continue their silent watch, just as they once did for the sailors who carried the name of Phoenicia across the ancient world, and the quiet city rests, held in the soft, enduring calm of its twilight age. The echoes, the Phoenicians left behind, long after a people vanished from the centre of history, long after their sails have lowered and their cities have quieted, there remain traces, faint but enduring, woven into language, into trade, into memory, into the very shape of the world they once knew. The Phoenicians, a people of sailors and craftsmen, merchants and navigators, left behind echoes that still ripple through the centuries, quiet yet unmistakable. Imagine now a coastline at dawn, not in a single place, but in many, along Lebanon, Cyprus, Sicily, Sardinia, Tunisia, Spain, shores the Phoenicians once walked, harbours where their ships once anchored, markets where their voices once mingled with a dozen tongues. The sea touches each of these shores with the same gentle rhythm, as though remembering those who mastered its currents long ago. The waves roll in and retreat, leaving behind small traces of foam. The air is cool and holds the faint scent of salt and distant forests. It is peaceful, timeless, a fitting setting to explore what remains of a people who never conquered through armies, but through connection. Walk now along an ancient stone path near the coast. The stones are smooth, worn by centuries of footsteps. They lead toward what once was a bustling Phoenician port, perhaps Tyre, perhaps Byblos, perhaps one of the many colonies founded across the Mediterranean. Today the port is quiet. The buildings that once stood here are mostly gone, softened into ruins by wind and time. Yet the shape of the harbour remains, carved deliberately, purposefully, as if the sea itself remembers where ships once gathered. A fisherman sits on the edge of the water mending his nets. His movements are slow, patient, practiced. He ties knots in a pattern older than memory, a pattern that was once used by Phoenician sailors. His skill is not something learned from books or monuments, but inherited through quiet generations. This too is an echo. Follow the coastline further. In a small workshop of weathered stone, a glassmaker shapes molten material with a long rod. The workshop glows with warm golden light as the furnace breathes softly. The craftsman turns the rod with steady hands, forming a delicate vessel that shimmers in shades of sea blue and faint green. This style of glasswork, ancient, refined, gentle in its artistry, was once a hallmark of Phoenician cities. It survived not through military power or formal decree, but through the quiet persistence of craftsmen who passed their knowledge from one set of hands to the next. The glassmaker cools the vessel slowly, placing it beside others that glow faintly in the soft morning light. Their colours shift subtly, catching hints of gold from the sunlight filtering through the open window. On the table beside him lies a basket of tiny beads, simple, translucent, glittering like droplets of water. Beads much like these were found in graves and markets across the ancient world. They were traded by the Phoenicians from coast to coast, becoming commonplace in lands far from their origin. Another echo. Walk now toward a sunlit hilltop. From here, the world spreads wide. You see the curve of the coastline, the quiet ruins below, and the open sea stretching into the horizon. This horizon was once the edge of the known world for countless civilizations, but not for the Phoenicians. They saw it as a doorway, not a boundary. Their greatest echo is this idea, that the world does not end where the eye can no longer see. Across centuries, this belief influenced sailors, explorers, traders, and entire cultures who inherited the knowledge of navigation from the Phoenicians. The wind on the hill is mild and carries the faint call of seabirds. The waves below move with slow, steady motion. The world feels spacious, ancient, and connected, just as the Phoenicians once believed it to be. Descend now into an archaeological site nestled near the base of the hill. Stone blocks lie scattered among low grasses. A few carved pillars still stand, their surfaces faintly patterned with worn markings. Scholars walk carefully among them, taking notes, brushing dust from fragments of pottery, fitting broken pieces together. These pieces, bowls, storage jars, amphorae, carry designs recognisable to anyone who has studied Phoenician trade. Their lines are simple, yet elegant, their shapes carefully balanced. These objects speak a language not of words, but of continuity. Across the site, workers uncover inscriptions etched into stone tablets and fragments of pottery. Some of the writing is Phoenician, angular, flowing, unmistakably the ancestor of the alphabets used today. This is perhaps the most profound echo of all. The alphabet developed by the Phoenicians, simple and efficient, became the foundation of Greek writing, which in turn influenced Latin. From Latin, the alphabet spread through Rome's vast territories, eventually shaping the languages of Europe and far beyond. Every book, every letter, every sign written in the modern alphabet carries within it a faint trace of ancient Phoenician script. The lines carved on this stone were left by hands that moved with the same deliberate intention as the scribes of Tyre or Byblos thousands of years ago. Simple marks, yet their influence is immeasurable. Continue walking through the ruins. You come upon a courtyard shaded by olive trees. Their leaves shimmer softly in the breeze, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Olive trees have long lives. Some here may be descendants of trees planted when Phoenician merchants lived in this region. Beneath them lie fragments of pottery with traces of purple dye still visible, the famous dye made from murex shells, once used to colour the robes of kings. This dye, more valuable than silver, travelled across the ancient world through Phoenician trade routes. A small piece of cloth discovered in a distant burial site might carry its colour, faint but powerful, an echo of a craft that once defined a civilization. Now imagine walking along a quiet shoreline beyond the ruins. A cluster of small fishing boats rests on the sand. Their hulls are painted in bright blues and reds. Rope coils lie beside them, nets dry in the sun, their fibres thin but strong. The techniques used to build these boats, their shape, their ribs, their gentle curve, resemble methods passed down through coastal families for hundreds of years. Though the Phoenicians themselves are long gone, the knowledge they developed for sea travel lives on quietly in boats like these. A shepherd walks by, herding goats along a rocky path that winds upward. He greets you with a nod and continues on, his steps slow and deliberate. The path he follows traces the same route traders once used to carry goods inland. Over time, stone became dust, but paths remain, another faint echo of ancient movement. Further inland, ruins of old storehouses stand partially reclaimed by the earth. Their lower stones are still sturdy. Their walls once stored grain, wine, olive oil, goods that travelled from Carthage to Iberia, from Byblos to Egypt, from Tyre to Greece. Trade networks built by the Phoenicians shaped entire economies. Even after their decline, other civilizations continued using the routes they established, unaware that each trade path was first charted by people who learned to trust the sea. Walk now to the highest point of the ruins. The sea stretches endlessly below, and for a moment the world feels quiet, balanced between past and present. Beneath your feet lie centuries of buried history, layers of tools, pottery, writings, and fragments of life. With time, these layers settled softly, protected by earth and sand, only to be uncovered later by curious hands seeking understanding. The Phoenicians themselves did not carve grand monuments. They did not build empires through conquest. Their influence spread gently, through trade, through craft, through knowledge passed in quiet exchanges. Their legacy is not one of towering stone, but of subtle, enduring influence woven into the foundation of many cultures. Below you, the sunlight begins to soften. The coastline glows. The water reflects faint streaks of gold. A few fishermen pull their boats from the sea. Families gather along the shore. Children play in the sand. Everything feels calm and familiar, as though the ordinary rhythms of life carry traces of an ancient world. The Phoenicians no longer walk these shores, but their presence lingers in the way people build boats, in the languages people write, in the goods people trade, in the quiet belief that the sea can be both a boundary and a bridge. As the day fades and the sky deepens into gentle shade, the echoes of this people remain. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady, present in small objects, in quiet traditions, in the flow of the Mediterranean itself. A civilization may decline, but influence endures. And in the soft hush of evening, with waves moving against the coastline, the memory of the Phoenicians settles once more into the quiet places of the world, carried gently forward by time. Thank you for joining this quiet journey into the world of the Phoenicians, a people whose voice still lingers across the Mediterranean's ancient shores. Their cities, their crafts, and their ideas left gentle marks that shaped cultures far beyond their own time. If you enjoyed exploring their story, feel free to share where you listened from and whether you'd like another civilization told in this same calm way. Until then, rest well, and may the echoes of history keep you company through the night.